Meeting come to order. Please join me in the prayer. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us as everyone who serves in the decision-making process of the city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day of wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and to work. Amen. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Here.
Counsel Janess.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Counsel Robinson.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Scott. Mayor Chow. Counsel Drinkwater.
Here.
Councillor Yam. Councillor Yam's here.
9 present.
We couldn't miss you. Mayor's business. Are there any moment of silences? Seeing none. 2, mayor's business. Communication, remote Zoom participation. Motion to accept by Councilor Yem, seconded by Councilor Rourke. At this time, we'd ask that someone would give us a suspension of rules to allow us to give citations to the Daly School and the Pine School. Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Noon.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I had an
Leahy.
obit, but I was trying to find it when you went by. Can I just do a quick obit?
Yep, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to do a remembrance for Judith Flood. Judith A. Flood, 77 of Lowell, Massachusetts, passed away in March at her home surrounded by her loving family. She was the devoted wife of the late James Jimmy Flood, who died in 2018, born in Chelsea, Mass., the daughter of the late William and Joan Dolan McCluskey. She attended Maddington High, class of 1962, Newton College of the Sacred Heart, class of 1966. Later completed her master's degree in psychology at Cambridge College. Prior to her retirement, Judy worked as a guidance counselor in the Lowell Public School System. She was the founder and past president of the Spindle City Garden Club of Lowell. She was a devoted mother and wife. She leaves behind her son, James W. Flood II, his wife Alana, Catherine J. Flood, and her husband Christopher Hughes, William P. Flood, and Thomas F. Flood of Boston. She will be sadly missed. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I, too, want to thank my colleague, John Leahy, for bringing this forward. I did not know that she had passed away, but if I had, and I know it was in March, I would have been honored to do this for her. I know Judy very well. She was a teacher, a guidance counselor at Lowell High School. She would bring the special needs students into the cafeteria. She treated them like gold. She was a credit to the teaching system. She was a credit to Lowell High School, and she will be truly missed. She was a remarkable woman, and thank you for bringing that forward, because I'm sorry I missed that. Thank you.
Are there any more moments of silences? Seeing none, if we can darken the chambers, please. Continuing under the suspension of the rules, if the Daly Middle School would like to come up to the podium and receive their citation. So all the students from the Daly Middle School and the teachers, if they'd like to come up to the podium, please. The only one who bites in here is Councilor Leahy, so if you stay away from him and get close to the podium, you'll be all set. Right, Councilor? Official citation, be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offer its sincere congratulations to the Dealey Middle School 2023 Catherine P. Stockloza Knowledge Bowl winners. The Dealey Middle School team spent months preparing, faithfully following the news to determine noteworthy current events, identifying and practicing math strategies for high school level problems sets, and working cooperatively to bring each other strengths in history, science, music, and ELA buzzer round sets. The team is supportive, driven, and being a great example of the education driven within the City of Lowell. The Dealey Middle School team will represent the city proudly going forward into the Regional Knowledge Bowl tournament on May 22nd, 2023. Now I hereby Vice Mayor Eric Gitcher, on behalf of Mayor Sakari Chow and the entire City Council and residents of Lowell, hereby offer our sincere congratulations and best wishes to the Dealey Middle School 2023 Knowledge Bowl winners. If the Pine Arts School Knowledge Bowl third place winners would come to the podium, please. Official citation, be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offer its sincere congratulations to the Pine Arts School 2023 Catherine P. Stockloza Knowledge Bowl third place winners. The Catherine Stockloza Knowledge Bowl was established in 1988 for the purpose of engaging students from all 9 middle schools in a challenge academic competition. Each school team includes 2 coaches who work to prepare students for the competitive months in advance. Teams review practice questions in English, math, arts, social studies, science, and the arts and current events. The Pine Arts School team began preparing for the competition in October of 2022. They practiced weekly and learned how to answer and respond to questions quickly. Through all the hard work, the Pine School team showed an incredible will to compete that would see them make it into the finals, which by the end would see the team's third place overall in the competition, showing great determination throughout. Now, therefore, I, Vice Mayor Eric Gitcher, on behalf of Mayor Sakari Chow and the entire City Council and residents of Lowell, hereby offer our sincere congratulations and best wishes to the Pine Arts School 2023 Knowledge Bowl third place runner-ups.
All done. Cool. All done.
While we're on suspensions of the rules, if I could have someone make a motion to take 7.2 out of order. Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Robinson. 7.2 miscellaneous, Christine Florence, Maggie O'Rourke, request permission to discuss donation of LifeVac choking rescue devices to the city. Do we have registered speakers, Mr. Clerk?
The two petitioners are here. They can decide who wants to go first and who wants to go second, or however you like.
Good to go, okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. City Manager Golden, Vice Mayor, members of the council. My name is Maggie O'Rourke. I live at 25 Glenwood Street in Lowell. I'm here to talk about the LifeVac device. I am an ICU nurse at Mass General Hospital. This is my mom, Christine Florence. She's a nurse practitioner. My sister-in-law, Lisa Florence. She is a emergency room nurse at Lowell General. And my dad, Bill Florence, who's a Lowell public school teacher. So I originally heard about the LifeVac about a year ago when I went back to work postpartum from a few friends at work. Being an ICU nurse and being a new mom, I just felt that this is super important to have in case of emergency. I also bought one of these for my parents' home. My daughter spends a lot of time there, and I just thought it was important. I never in a million years thought the very next day after gifting this to my parents that my mom would have to use it after my dad was choking. I'm just going to give a quick demonstration on how it works. So the device itself is supposed to be used after basic life support, meaning after giving the Heimlich maneuver and also giving CPR if necessary. This is almost like the Hail Mary when someone's choking and you just can't get that, whatever they're choking on, dislodged. So it comes with this, this device, which is almost like a plunger in this adult mask. The way it is used is you place it on the face, you place it, you push it, and you pull it out, and it causes a major suction, and it dislodges the food. It also comes with a pediatric mask for children. So that's, and it comes with also a practice mask. This is one that can be stored also in your car in case of emergencies in restaurants or on the go. I'm just gonna have my mom come up and actually talk about the event that happened and what took place at home.
Thank you, everyone, for having us tonight. I have made a couple little notes. So it was the day after Christmas, December 26th in 22, and Bill and I were sitting down to have some dinner. And it had been a long day the day before we entertained, so we were both tired. It was just about 7 o'clock. And we had some leftovers, and we didn't sit at the table. We sat, I was on the couch, he was in a soft, low chair. And we put on a comedy movie just to relax. And I looked over, and he was getting out of the chair, and I asked him if there was something wrong, and he didn't answer me. And if you know anything about choking, that is the cardinal sign of choking, that someone cannot speak. So he attempted to go into the kitchen. By the time he got into the kitchen, he became unconscious and fell to the floor hard. I could tell by his color that he was not breathing at that moment. So, of course, panic set in. I know I'm a healthcare professional, but when it's your own family member, it's very different. So I tried the Heimlich. I did the abdominal thrusts. It wasn't working. I got the phone. I called 911, and I did get a lovely woman who helped me through the whole thing. I found out her name in the last couple of days. Catherine, thank you. So she talked me through it, and eventually we felt as though I tried the Heimlich again, and I needed to do CPR. So we started CPR, and then I remembered the LifeVac, and literally it was under the Christmas tree. I ran to get it. I honestly didn't look at it. I wasn't sure how to use it, but I knew it was a mask, and it looked like it was an adult mask, and I put it on his face, and I used it. The first time, nothing happened. The second time, the food actually came up into the plunger, and within a short period of time, he actually took a breath. Just about then, my lovely daughter-in-law came charging through the front door. I was never so happy to see her, so she can attest to what it was like in my house at that time. Then the fire department came, the police, ambulance, paramedics, and so on. But he did come to finally on his own and began to breathe, and Lisa helped us over at Lowell General. We spent most of the night there, and here he is today. So I'm so happy to be doing this with a good outcome. And not only that, I'm thrilled that we're doing something good out of a situation that could have been terrible. And honestly, all my years working in the medical field, I had never seen the LifeVac. And we all teased Maggie about buying it for us for a Christmas present. I do want to make sure I thank a few people. I reached out to my colleague and friend Beth Moffett, and between Beth and Lisa Golden, they were unbelievable. They just took the ball and ran with it. And we now have 2 LifeVacs in every public school in the city of Lowell. And I'm so proud of that, and I know they are too. I also want to thank Jim Hall and Doroth Yan, and of course the firefighters, police, EMTs, and the paramedics, and the young woman on the phone with me. They never get the credit they deserve, and I'm so thankful to them. And Sean Machado, who's been my contact, thank you to you We are here tonight because we want to donate 50 more to the city. Oh, I didn't tell you about the code. After it all happened, I couldn't really talk about it for a while, but Maggie took the ball and she contacted the company. And after a couple weeks, they said if you'd be willing to put it on social media with our code, FLO, F-L-O, for Florence, you would get a donation LifeVac for every sale you made. Within 2 weeks, we got 175 LifeVacs. And the president, she went to the president and said, how many do you think we have to give them? And he said 25. So they were surprised too, and we've sold more since then, and they've been very generous in giving us as many as we've needed. So I thank the LifeVac company for standing by their word. Did I miss anything? Thank you. This is my daughter-in-law, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I just wanted to let you guys know that I responded before EMS to the scene, and I can assure you that based on what I saw there, had it not been for that LifeVac, I don't know if my father-in-law would be here. So we're very happy to see this all around the city.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bill Florence, and I'm a very fortunate and happy person to be standing before you tonight. I want to reiterate, I want to thank everybody, the police, fire, EMTs, Lowell General Hospital, and also Arthur Lai, who is the founder and owner of the LifeVac Foundation, LifeVac Company. It's a fact, without the LifeVac, I would not have survived that incident. I am a teacher in the Lowell Public School System, and there's no question that necessary that all schools, public and private, we mentioned about the public, but the private schools too are going to also be receiving a couple of these devices, should have LifeVacs, and they will. And we're not done. Maggie and the rest of us have taken an interest in trying to drive this thing throughout the state and to try to push a bill somehow across the Commonwealth so that every school in Massachusetts have access to these. Like I'm at the Riley, and one of these are hanging in the cafeteria, and the other one is attached to the nurse's briefcase or bag, whatever, they have. And my dream, and it may be an ambitious one, is that all schools across the United States, there's no reason why every school shouldn't have them within their reach if somebody's choking. I can't describe, because I really can't remember anything that occurred when that happened. But again, I know I would have been dead if it wasn't for my true heroes. In closing, I want to publicly thank my true heroes. Maggie, for her vision to purchase LifeVacs for the family. My wife, Chrissy, my wife for 42 years. I have no idea what she went through. It was easy for me because I didn't know what was happening. And my other daughter, Lisa, who came into the house during the event before the medical personnel arrived. Without the three of them, and God, okay, I would not be here tonight. I love you all. Thank you very much.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. What a remarkable story. And unless you had an occasion of choking, you really don't understand the fright that goes along with it. I have a tendency to choke. I know I'll never be invited to dinner at anybody's house after hearing that, but it's a frightening experience that brought me to the hospital on a couple of occasions. So In fact, it was so bad that I had an endoscopy so that they could widen my throat so that things would go down. I guess once you get older, everything closes. But I want to thank this family for their remarkable story and saving lives. And I know that they had a mission to get these life facts into the school system. But I would like to make a motion through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, that this is so critical that I would like to see them in all public safety vehicles, whether they be fire engines, police cruisers. This is very, very important. I would call John Chemley and Dave Daly and ask, do you have these in your ambulance? I'm certainly sure they might. This is a very, very important. So that is a motion that I am making, because this, what Mr. Florence went through saved many more lives. It took one person to have this happen to him. I'm sorry it did, but at the same time, look what it has created. So it was destiny that this should happen. And I know firsthand the danger and the fear. And if you're alone, you can apply this to yourself too. So I'm just so grateful to hear this story, and that's the motion. Thank you. I have a second.
Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Leahy, to refer this to the manager to purchase for all fire and police equipment.
Thank you so much.
While we're under suspension of the rules, if it would be okay by everyone here, if I could read a letter that came from Senator Kennedy today in regards to the high school project. If there's no objections, I'll read some of the letter for you. It says, Dear Mayor Chow, members of the Lowell City Council, and City Manager Golden, I am pleased to write today that the Massachusetts State Senate has put forward a plan that would help Lowell High School and other similar schools building projects with cost overruns brought about by COVID-19 pandemic, global supply chain issues, and subsequent extensive increases in material cost. As you may be aware, at the beginning of this legislative session, I filed S-298, an act relative to increased material cost in school construction projects, which called upon the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to make funds available for previously approved Massachusetts School Building Authority projects that have been disproportionately impacted by recent trends. 3 of the affected school projects serve students in my district, Lowell High School, Tingsboro Middle School, and the Florence Roach School in Groton-Dunstable School District. In addition to the legislative I filed in January, I have also worked closely with Senate President Karen Spilka and Senate Ways and Means Chairman Mike Rodriguez on these issues, and stressed to them during our budget meetings about the importance of finding a solution that would alleviate the cost pressures on affected cities and towns without any sacrifice in the quality of the facilities for our students. Senate leadership has been very open and responsive to our concerns, and I thank President Spilka and Chairman Rodriguez for truly recognizing this issue as a statewide priority in the Senate's budget plan. In S3, the Senate Ways and Means Committee FY24 budget bill, $100 million has been set aside for Massachusetts School Building Authority capital support for cities, towns, and school districts experience extraordinary school project costs impacted by post-COVID inflationary pressures, with this investment being made possible by the additional revenue from the Fair Share Amendment. This fund shall be made available for 30 affected school projects in Massachusetts that have been previously approved. The bill also calls for raising the MSBA's annual borrowing cap to $1.2 billion, with the possibility that these additional funds may also be used to defray costs on these previously approved projects. The Senate will formally voting on this budget in 2 weeks, and I expect that it will pass with great enthusiasm from the entire Senate body. Since the House version of the budget does not include a plan to mitigate the unanticipated increase in cost of school building construction materials, the Senate plan will still need approval by a conference committee and a signature from Governor Healy. I am hopeful that this plan will become part of the Commonwealth's budget for fiscal year 2024. Thank you for your ongoing and steadfast support for Lowell High School project. The entire city of Lowell remains dedicated to ensuring each and every one of our students receive a high-quality education in an accessible, state-of-the-art, first-class facility. This is my sincere hope that this Senate plan will help the city as we move forward together towards the unwavering goal, Senator Ed Kennedy. And at the same time, I do want to thank former manager Donahue and current Manager Golden for pushing these issues onto our delegation and trying to get back some of these much-needed funds that we have been sitting at this council and fighting for since the day this council took office. We fought to see what those overruns were, and we asked for help from the state, and I think this is a great piece moving forward. I did speak with Senator Kennedy earlier, and he is saying that 12 to 13% of the funds will come to the city of Lowell, he believes. So of that, it would be $24 million of the $38 million overrun. So that's about 63% of the overrun. And I just would ask that the manager would write a letter thanking the senator for putting this forward for us. Would anyone else like to speak on that? Well, we're under, Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I was very excited to see this letter from Senator Kennedy today, and I think it's an excellent step in the right direction. And the taxpayers of the city of Lowell should feel a sense of relief with this. But I would like to ask Mr. Vice Mayor, if I could make a motion to ask the manager to reach out to our House delegation and the House leadership just to make sure they're aware of how important this is to the city of Lowell, and ask them for their support as we move through this budget process on this.
Seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Well, we're still under suspension rules. Does everybody want to take registered speakers? Councilor Robinson?
Can I make a motion, well, under suspension, motion 8.22?
Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Motion 8.22, Councilor Rourke, Councilor Robinson, Councilor Scott, Councilor Yem requests City of Lowell declare homelessness a public health crisis. Do we have any registered speakers, Mr. Clerk?
Susan West Levine.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, city council members, Vice Mayor.
Please state your name and
City Manager.
address.
Yep, onto it. My name is Susan Levine, and I am the CEO of Lowell Community Health Center. And I am here with my colleague, Sheila Oach, who is our Chief Engagement and Equity Officer. We are here to speak on motion 8.22 at request of City Council to declare homelessness a public health crisis. This motion gives us the opportunity to speak to the link between health and homelessness. Homelessness and housing insecurity are considered among the most important social determinants of health. This is supported by Community Teamwork's 2021 Community Needs Assessment results, which showed that the creation of quality, affordable housing is the #1 community need in our city of Lowell. The social determinants of health are a foundational concept in the field of public health and explain how the conditions one finds in one's environment influence health, well-being, and quality of life. At the Health Center, we see the interconnectedness of how one's housing status affects one's mental and physical health firsthand. We often ask ourselves, what good does it do to treat people, then send them right back out into the conditions that made them sick in the first place? According to the American Public Health Association, those experiencing homelessness have higher rates of chronic mental and physical health conditions. A study in Boston showed that those living unsheltered or in temporary locations are 2 times more likely to experience diabetes. Homelessness makes it that much more difficult for individuals to manage these types of chronic conditions. If we take diabetes as an example, managing such a condition requires access to clean needles and clean testing supplies, as well as refrigeration for insulation for some members of our community, all of which can be difficult or nearly impossible for individuals experiencing homelessness. Research also indicates that individuals experiencing homelessness have a mortality risk 1.5 to 11.5 times greater than the general population's risk. And like so many other social conditions and needs, the National Alliance to End Homelessness states, and it's important to emphasize, that homelessness disproportionately impacts communities of color, largely due to long-standing historical and structural racism. This is due to several factors, including poverty and segregation and rental housing discrimination via practices like redlining, a systemic housing discrimination supported by federal government for decades, for which we are still seeing the effects of today. Moreover, it is overall more challenging for people of color to transition to stable housing. A study by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on racial discrimination found that people of color were often shown fewer rental units and denied more leases in comparison to their white counterparts. The 2021 Community Teamwork, I see you're here, Community Needs Assessment also states that trends in home ownership are increasingly disparate, with significant gains for white homeowners and declining ownership in communities of color. The combination of these things makes it more likely for people of color to become homeless. On the term public health crisis, Boston University School of Public Health describes a public health crisis as an issue that, 1, affects a substantial number of people, 2, threatens health over the long term, and 3, requires the adoption of large-scale solutions. And I just want to repeat that, large-scale solutions. Beyond just a statement, beyond just a declaration, we hope that the city takes bold action to remedy this issue in our community. We urge the city to also have an action plan, one that makes access to stable housing a single and top priority, continue to support the many efforts focused on increasing access to housing, create urgency, commit to actioning and allocating resources to end homelessness, and to do so with the voices of those in need of housing. Whether these voices are people who are unsheltered or housing insecure, keep them at the table, along with the interdisciplinary and cross-sector collaboration from many agencies and nonprofits across the city, and report to our community on progress. And finally, build the systems changes needed in order for the infrastructure to be sustainable. In closing, we know that to end homelessness, we must address a range of issues. Merely displacing people or housing them temporarily is not sustainable. We need to ensure the creation and the sustainability of stable housing for all in our community. Beyond the services that we already offer at our health center, we stand ready to assist the city, along with our community, to working towards achieving our vision of a just and healthy community. To quote the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council, while healthcare providers do all that they can to mitigate the effects of the streets, no amount of health care can substitute for stable housing. And I leave you with that powerful statement. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Thank you.
Karen Frederick.
Good evening. I'm Karen Frederick. I'm the CEO of Community Teamwork. I'm also here as one of the members and one of the founding members of the Greater Lowell Interagency Homeless Coalition. I'm trying to think of the name exactly. And that's made up of the Chamber of Commerce, the CEO of the Lowell Plan, of NIMCOG, South Middlesex Opportunity Council, and the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, whose CEO is also going to speak tonight. So thank you, Vice Mayor and members of the council, for allowing us to speak on this. And a lot of my points were made eloquently by my colleague, Sue Levine, so I will be very careful not to repeat and keep it concise. Some cities across the country have done this and named homelessness as a public housing crisis. And in the light of raising the urgency and highlighting the need, and it is urgent and it is important. While not directly tied to most funding that we work with in the homeless world, either from the federal or state government, it certainly can add to the severity and to the emphasizing the crisis. At Community Teamwork, we work with over 250 homeless families, several hundred homeless youth, and currently we've reduced from 125 to about 50 homeless individuals. We know that homelessness is a public health crisis for people and individuals and youth who are unhoused. As Sue said, mental health and depression are significantly higher in these groups. Children who experience homelessness display mental health symptoms 2 to 4 times that of their low-income peers, and they often exhibit developmental and cognitive delays. Youth who experience homelessness are significantly more likely to experience chronic homelessness as an adult. And adults who experience homelessness can suffer serious physical and mental health issues as a result of their homelessness, being exposed to weather conditions, unsanitary housing conditions, and other often inadequate nutrition, among the many other items that Sue outlined. Researchers estimate that the cost to care for someone unhoused or in a shelter has been estimated to be $35,000 to $150,000 per year. And that includes the cost to the community for increased policing, for emergency department visits, ambulances, and all the related costs. Sue really eloquently outlined the intersection of racism and homelessness, so I won't repeat that, but that is really important to think about. But we know what we need. The City of Lowell did a plan prior to COVID. We brought in a national consultant to help us develop a plan, and we have that. We know we need housing. We know that the longer we delay in adding the units, the worse this crisis will become. I think most of you know I've been around for a very long time. I have never seen a crisis like this in housing and homelessness, and I hope to never see one again. And I hope we get out of this more quickly than I expect we will. We have sites all across the city housing young people, families, and adults. Most people don't even know they're there, and that's because they're managed well, and they are built, and they include supportive services for the families and individuals there. And supportive services is a really critical part of building housing for this population. We have been on a quest for the last about year and a half to get to 300 units of new housing because it's so desperately needed. We're at about 60. At that pace, by the time we get to 300, the need will probably have doubled. A focus on the development of permanent supportive housing is critical. Having a permanent place to live gives people the opportunity to be healthier, stable, and retain jobs. A lot of our families and individuals work every day. They leave the shelter and go to work, and we need more people who can work. Think about how hard it is to get up, to go from a shelter or to bounce from place to place and then go to a job. It's hard to hold a job, and we need every single person we can in this economy to be working.
Ms. Federick, we're closing in on the 5-minute mark.
Okay, I have one more sentence, so I'm good. It also gives children the chance to focus on school, knowing that they will be safe and stable, something we know we all need and want. I'll just end with housing, housing, housing. That really is the solution, and that's what we need to put our focus and attention on. Thank you.
Jay Lenahan?
Good evening. Jay Linehan, President and CEO of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, born and raised in this city. Some 25 years ago, there was homelessness in this city, but it wasn't the way it is today. 25 years ago, we had some shelters and we had some housing, and for the most part, nobody paid much attention to it. It was taken care of. So what's happened? As you think about that for a second, to reiterate, I think homelessness is by far the #1 priority we've got in our community. And as you think about why it's changed so much, it's our world gets smaller and smaller as we get more and more people. It's pretty simple. 25 years ago, the world was a much smaller place. 25 years ago, the services that we had took care of all the homeless. But now, as the population continues to grow, and it creates the supply and demand issues that we see with housing, it's fundamental economics. There's not enough houses for the people that are looking for them, so only the people with the most amount of money can afford the housing, and people are getting forced out of housing all the time. I think one of the biggest issues that folks face all the time is the stigma about housing. And I think folks look at the person on the corner or some of the folks that are dealing with mental health and addiction issues and go, well, those are the people that are going into supportive housing. Wrong. That is not the case. There are so many people today that are couch surfing, they're living in their cars, they've got jobs, they're people that are trying to get along with their lives, but they have a very difficult time doing that because they don't have a home to go to. As Karen alluded to earlier, it was back in 2019 that we brought together a national expert. And together with the city, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, CTI, and the Lowell Plan, we commissioned that. And that was a housing action plan that was predicated on the evidence of housing first strategy. The housing first strategy flipped the paradigm a little bit in way back when it was, by the way, if you've got an addiction, if you've got other mental health issues, go fix those and then we'll find a house for you. Well, think of how odd that scenario is. Get a house first, let's put support around it, and then we can bring people that have those particular issues to be productive in the community. The other part that's become really interesting and I found really sad as I learned a lot about this was so many different people that become homeless did not have addiction or mental health issues until they became homeless. And then while they were out on the street, under a bridge or whatever, developed addiction, developed mental health illness, which is a crying shame. That should not be the case in the community we live in today. One of the biggest obstacles that we deal with is, in fact, the stigma, that particular stigma. Everybody looking at folks in that light. That is not who they are. They are individuals that need the assistance, and I think we need to be really smart about how we do that. And another part of that just comes down to the economic impact of what goes on in the city. If we think that housing is a problem today, and if we think that homelessness is a problem today, and we continue on the pace that we're on, what do you think it's going to look like in 5, 10, 25 years? It's not going to look better. It's going to look worse. As we look to do the things in this community for development, for bringing people downtown, for economic activity and so forth, it's not going to happen because people are going to be afraid to come downtown. That is happening in major cities across this country today. Housing is the answer to this particular solution. When we did that study back in 2019, a couple of really good things came out of that. One was to hire a homeless coordinator. That happened. There's a homeless coordinator on board right now. One of the other key things that came out of that was to put together a committee that would meet on a regular basis to go through the issues. And that was all pre-COVID. COVID came along, and that commission that was meeting was making great inroads and great strides. So, Mr. Manager, what I'd ask you to do is consider bringing back that group again, bringing back a number of the players that came to the table in the mayor's conference room. And that room was packed with people around this city that knew all the variety of different issues. There were subcommittees that were established, and there was work that was done, and there was things that were accomplished. Without that particular type of collaboration and concerted effort, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, we are not going to see the success. I don't feel like I'm going to go anywhere into the next world anytime yet. But before I do, I really would like to think that we can see some movement on addressing homelessness in the city of Lowell.
Mr. Linehan, we're approaching the 5-minute.
Problem is not going away. Someone needs to own it, and I think it starts right here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Deb Belanger.
Been a long time since I've been in these chambers. My name is Debbie Belanger. I live at 65 La Plume Avenue in Lowell, Massachusetts, in the Pawtucketville neighborhood. I, too, am a lifelong resident of the city of Lowell. My husband and I have owned our home for 33 years. Tonight, I felt compelled to show my support for this motion. Homelessness has been an issue in this city since 2008. Is that 25 years? However, it has worsened since the opioid epidemic and then COVID. Our homeless population deserves better than living in squalor on our streets and in encampments, and we as property owners and residents deserve better in our neighborhoods. I went downtown for lunch at El Potro about 6 weeks ago with my triplet granddaughters and my daughter-in-law. Walking back to the car, I was approached by 2 homeless people looking for money. How do you explain to a 4-year-old why those men were looking for money? Fast forward 2 weeks. I'm meeting my girls and their mother for breakfast at the Owl Diner. Thank God I got there first. I parked in the lot up on the hill. I started walking towards the steps, and there were 2 people cooking crack on a spoon at 9 a.m. in the morning. I had some choice words for them. My daughter-in-law pulls up, and I motioned to her to keep the girls in the car. Again, our businesses in the downtown corridor should not have to deal with this. This breaks my heart. I worked for over 25 years, hand in hand with the city, on bringing visitors, events, travel writers, and economic impact to our businesses. Lowell was a destination city. We need to think outside of the box, and we need to do it now before it's too late. I understand and I see the value that all of these speakers have brought to the table. I know what CTI does. I know how many people they have put up in hotels and surrounding businesses in the area. And you're right, housing first. But maybe if we declare this a public health crisis, maybe we can get more money to help support our endeavors. And I agree with Mr. Linehan. We need to start the committees again. I'm retired. I'd be more than happy to help with my services because I do think out of the box and I do get stuff done. So again, I want to thank you for your time tonight, and we really need to do a better job than we're doing now. Thank you.
Ivana Dawa?
Okay. Hello, good evening. My name is Ivana Dower, and I'm the Health Access Program Coordinator at Coalition for a Better Acre, and I'm also a student studying public health at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. I'm here to speak on the motion for declaring homelessness as a public health crisis. While I think that declaring homelessness as a public health crisis is a crucial step in coming to terms with the gravity of the situation our city is in, I think it is equally important that we reflect on what those words really mean. A public health crisis is defined as an urgent situation that adversely affects the health status of a large number of people. Declaring a public health crisis requires a rapid and effective response, which I think is important to note here. Making a declaration of crisis is half of the steps that are needed to solve this problem. For those here who do not know, the City of Lowell's website states that their goals regarding the homeless population are to organize and maintain a crisis response system that provides shelter for all citizens and focuses on rapid connection to resources, expand options for permanent and supportive housing and clinical supportive housing, use data and technology to maximize the impact of services, funding, planning, and track progress on key metrics. Collaborate with nonprofit organizations and public and private landlords to make housing and rental assistance available to people who are currently at risk of becoming homeless. Bearing these goals in mind, what programs are offered in this city? Are there just shelters, or are there programs that will help people become acclimated to society, work, education, etc., once they are back on their feet? There are 3 programs currently listed on the city website. I can think of at least 5 other organizations that do this kind of work in the city of Lowell. Are resources adequately shared within the homeless community, which is arguably one of the most in need? What are policies and procedures when a family falls on hard times and can no longer pay rent? Are residents in the city informed of their rights, and are they informed of their resources? Contrary to popular belief, sweeping encampments that people call home does not get rid of them. It just forces them to start over and find a home elsewhere. Earlier, when I stated that this is a crucial step in truly understanding the homelessness problem in this city, I want to be clear on what I meant. I am far less concerned for the general public of Lowell as I am for the people that are living on the streets. I am less concerned about the businesses in downtown as I am for the man that is sleeping on the stoop, covered in newspaper, and calling that his home. No one is negating the fact that homelessness takes a toll on our city, our streets, and our local economy. I'm aware of these factors and the issues that trickle down from the homeless population. I understand the severity of it. Our entire community understands the severity of it. What I believe a lot of people forget is that these are real people who wake up every morning with nothing, nowhere to go, and no backup plan. These are real people who live and breathe just like everybody else, but are given a fraction of the respect that the average functioning citizen is. I am not here to point fingers or to accuse the city or our community of doing less than they should. Rather, I am trying to bring awareness to the gap in resources and accessibility. Lowell has one of the strongest nonprofit networks in the state, but as a community and a city, we are sorely lacking in how we help others through our work. The people this city deems as a nuisance, a problem, or an inconvenience to businesses are in fact still people. They deserve the same access to basic human rights like water, food, housing. The people who are mocked and ridiculed for their state of being deserve more from this community and from this city. The homeless population of Lowell are still residents of Lowell and deserve to be treated as such. While I am in full support of this motion, I sincerely hope that it is being brought forward to this council because of the concern for the people living this reality every day, rather than to be used as an excuse to rip away people's homes for the sake of curb appeal. I look forward to hearing what the city does should this be declared a public health crisis, and what our plans are to help our fellow human beings in this time of need. Thank you for your time.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the speakers. I think it's clear, we're all aware, we're no different than a lot of our partners in the area, Merrimack Valley and nationwide. We have a housing shortage. My colleague and I also brought forward requesting the summit. I think some of the speakers touched on, we might need to bring that summit back sooner rather than later, and not to reinvent the wheel. We already have a document that was established, and I think bringing some of the key stakeholders to the table for review and maybe some updates, and then let's sit down and start taking some responsibility and assignments. Who's willing and prepared and has the resources to do what, and what resources do we have to go after? I think bringing back that working think tank that Mr. Linehan brought up is something desperately needed and long overdue. I think that would allow us to submit potential ideas and site locations to try to increase stock and see what we could do to streamline the funding mechanisms. We currently have a massive building in our city that jumps out, and we've had many discussions sitting right now, which is the Superior Courthouse. And maybe that would be a perfect project to throw at this think tank and start working to see what is it going to take to get that project done in a short amount of time, because there's no one entity in this room that can handle a monster that size. But I think collaboratively, and we each handle what we're comfortable handling and have the resources to do realistically, I think we can get it done. So the speaker's pretty much laid out, I think, a great course moving forward as to some things for this council to consider, and I'm glad. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer, because we see the crisis in many different areas in the city. Thank you.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think the motion is pretty simplistic in the way it's written. Other cities in New England have done it with some success. Manchester and Boston, and you see some of the funding that has come in as part of that. I'll thank the speakers as well, but to suggest that we need to own this, or that we are lacking in our support of the homeless, is very ignorant, and not paying attention to what this council, this city administration, our homeless director, our health director have done since we took office last January. To sit here and play a blame game gets nothing done, but that's just what some people do best in the city. It's a public health crisis for everybody involved, especially those that are homeless. The filth, and on the river, and it gets into the water, and it's everything. I mean, those that live outdoors, that are unhoused, much more likely to go to an emergency room to die earlier than others. But at the same time, we have a team, we have a director that goes out there every day and asks, do you want to help? And if they say no, what are we supposed to do? Just let them sit there and get progressively worse? We talked about those with diabetes, and we just allow these camps to grow and to not to take action. We are hurting those people much more so than clearing out these encampments and offering places to go. I know Councilor Drinkwater had a motion a while back about talking to other state agencies that could assist us. Obviously, Tewksbury State Hospital comes to mind right away. And mentioning earlier, when you have Manchester and Boston that have started to clear camps out and using funding to take care of these situations, Lowell was smack in the middle of those two cities. And once someone comes here and they decide to live outside, not because they have to, we own them. So we need to start taking action on both fronts, for the good of those that are homeless, but also for the good of the people that live here and that decide to have a business here, and that want to raise their family here. We all want the best for everyone involved. But again, we're not here to play a blame game and, to go after, someone or something. But I think as far as the first step, declaring this a public health crisis, I think is a good one, and then we can go from there. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke. Councilor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And I just want to say thank you to all the speakers who came out to speak. This is a very important issue for our city, and it's a problem throughout the country. We all need to come together, and like Councilor Rourke was talking about, if we're not, without pointing fingers, at anyone, but come together as a city, as a stakeholders, to find solution for the unhoused population. At the same time, be mindful of the residents who are the taxpayer and businesses that are affected by the homelessness. So how do we balance that? And that's Councillor Robinson talked about, bring the stakeholders together and then convene and talked about the solution so we can move forward in a positive way and direction for our city. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Yim. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I signed on to the motion not knowing whether or not this would bring any additional funding or grants to the city, but with the hope that that emphasis may help really to prioritize this at the state level especially. I think there's no larger issue affecting us in the city right now. To the young woman that spoke about not wanting to close camps, I would actually say the goal is to close camps, right? We don't want people living in inhumane conditions. We want to provide them help. We want to get them into permanent housing, obviously. And we don't know the answer. I think that this has been brought up in so many different forms. We've brought up Tewksbury State Hospital, parking garages as shelters, the courthouse as shelters. We've asked for a summit. So I think this, at this point, this really is just kind of an all hands on deck. Let's work together, the state, the federal level, our nonprofit partners. This is just, it's the #1 priority, and I think we all agree, though, that it is not humane to have people living in camps with no running plumbing, no water supply. And yes, I am concerned about the neighbors that live nearby that are calling me about rats in their neighborhood, about the litter. So this is just something, like I said, it's a hope, I guess, this motion, that this raises the priority at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scott. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. First, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for bringing this forward. When I first saw this on the agenda, I was really looking forward to this discussion tonight. And I appreciate that you brought this forward and we've had this conversation. I appreciate all the speakers coming tonight to share their thoughts and expertise with us. I am in full support of this motion. I think it's a needed step we need to take, but I would like to offer a friendly amendment if my colleagues are open to it, which would just be to ask that in addition to declaring this, to making this declaration, that we ask the city manager to begin to develop an action plan about what we can do to work towards solutions here. So if I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Mayor. Now, I'm honored to say that homelessness is a public health crisis. It is a crisis. There's no doubt about it. I just have concern with the fact when we say we want to get people off the street, there's no doubt about it. But I have a different approach to this, and maybe if really not much comes out of it, the fact that the speakers talked, especially Jay Linehan, about creating that summit again and get people together to sit down and talk, because anybody's idea is good ideas. Someone may have a suggestion that might lead to a massive overturning of people getting off the street and out of the element and into housing. So that's good. That's going to come out of this. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, we should reestablish that summit. It was a good thing that happened. How it dissolved or deteriorated, we have to bring it back. We need discussion. We need to talk and get ideas, because I don't know of anybody right here on this council that has the answer. I don't have the answer, but it is a crisis and we should look at it at that. I think what's happening is when we say that these are Lowellians, that they're ours, I don't believe they're all Lowellians. I don't believe they're all ours, but they're ours in the fact that they're human beings. So that to me is the difference. I look upon this at a different level, a different angle. I think there are a lot of people out there that are mentally ill, and just being out in the elements, in the snow, in the cold, in the rain, that in itself would create something to me if that was happening to me. So I can agree to that. But the fact is, I don't feel personally, maybe I'm wrong, that you take a person that's ill like that, mentally ill, and has issues, and you give them housing. I don't know how they're going to know how to control their money, how to handle things. I don't think so. My idea would be to try to get organizations together to fund a building to put people in there that are watched and overseen so that they can be alerted to take their medication, be alerted to, you know, did you take a shower today? Or, you know, just simple things that we take for granted. They have a hard time with that. I do see people. I went to work this morning and one of the homeless men was walking across the street, and I said to him, didn't we give you a pair of shoes yesterday? Where are they? Why are you walking with your stockings on? He said, because someone stole them off me. I said, well, come on back up to the sheriff's office. We'll give you another pair of shoes. This is what we're dealing with day in and day out. I think that we have many organizations that do remarkable work, but I think that we're overburdened with the massive amount of people that are coming here that are not Lowellians, and I wish that surrounding communities would do their fair share. And I don't see that happening, but I think good is coming out of this with the summit, and discussion and talk is very important. Maybe out of that summit we'll get some better ideas and solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to thank my colleague for putting this motion together, especially all the speakers who spoke very passionately about these issues and the work that your organization have done throughout the years. Homelessness is not going to go away, and we all said that. We said that many, many, many times, and it's not someone else's issue or problem. It has a ripple effect throughout the community. We heard speakers after speakers spoke about it. We heard it many, many, many times already. I think declared public health crisis would develop some action plan. That's a good first step. When Mr. Lanahan spoke about the housing homelessness coordinators that came out of that 2019 conference, you know, Housing First kind of initiative come out of there, the hiring the homelessness coordinator come out of there. Also, there's a committee, the committee that convene every month. I thought would still exist, but Mr. Lanahan just indicated that that is something we need to reconvene, that committee that meet every month with all these organizations ranging from the Great Law Foundation, CTI, CBA, and so many other organizations. We need to have that because they do have the expertise and they provide service to those homeless people. So I hope that those action plans consist of that and reconvene the committee going forward as soon as possible. Thank you for the motion, and thank you for all the speakers who spoke tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And if no one has any Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I just want to mention one more thing. I think, you know, thank you for putting the motion on. And I think what comes out of this too is the discussion again, you know, bring back the meetings and the summits that we can have here in the city. But until we get, you know, our partners in the state and federal involved, we're not going to have the resources. And whether it's money, whether it's building, whether it's employees to build these locations where people can reside at, you know, it's not going to happen. We're trying to do the best we can. Massachusetts we have to take a look at the numbers and see who's homeless, who needs mental health, who needs to be under physician's care. There's many moving parts to this also. And it's interesting, when you look at the top 3 states for homelessness, it's California, Vermont, and Oregon. So it bounces back and forth. But, everybody is dealing with this. It's not just a local issue, but here we are trying to do something about it. But we have to get, again, our state and federal partners involved. Not to belittle the letter we got today from the senator's office. That's great. We're going to put $100 million, into catching up into the shortages. But that $100 million could have been used towards homelessness. And I'm not saying that is where that money should have gone, but, could we have, as a city, done without some of that money, that $30,000? Yeah, it would have been a little bit tough, but maybe that money would have been better spent somewhere else. But again, we have to come together as a state and put those resources together. So the discussion here is great. I hope the summits continue. But again, we need partners, state and federal partners, to work on this. Thank you.
If there's no objections, I just would like to make a few comments from up here. So today we received the number of homeless from the homeless director that are in the city, and I just want to run the numbers by people, because as we look around and we do budgets and we start trying to figure out how we're going to solve things, we need businesses in the city. We have to support them some way. So the numbers came out today, and there were 253 homeless. That was what was shared. 159 of them have shelter, which is 63%. And the other 94 are outdoors. So 94 people are outdoors. That's 0.08% of our population. And it's not our population, because there are people within there that are not from our area, but we do care about them. As much as people want to stand up here week in and week out, this council has really worked extremely hard, harder than any other council previous. And maybe the problem's bigger than it was previously. I don't know. I would defer to Mr. Linehan on that. But I don't know that in the last year and a half it is much bigger than it was 3 years ago. You go along that river, it's been like that for longer than 3 years. And I don't think we had the data. And that's what I asked the homeless director last week is the data. You're going to drive this by data. And if we run businesses out of this city, we have less money to put into our schools. We have less money to put in our roads, into everything we fundamentally do in this city. Think about that. If we don't have the money from the businesses, and we have to protect them, is keep people out of their doorway, keep people from going to the bathroom. I don't know that that's a hard thing, but there are obviously mental issues. And we have to do better in this country on the mental health issues. And it starts in our school systems, and it starts with all of us. But to just say we should just leave it the way it is a tough, tough choice. And it's not getting better, so we have to devise things that are going to work. And I think this motion by these 4 councilors is an unbelievable one. It gives us an avenue to go back and see if there is funding, if there's other mechanisms. When we start looking at the high school and we start looking at all the money that's going everywhere, Council Leahy's not wrong. We could have left the high school the way it was and put $400 million into the homeless. Where does it end? Where does it begin? So I think that this council, and I thank my colleagues for bringing these things forward so all of you can speak, because I want to tell you, your organizations are doing the hard work, and they are doing the good work. And it isn't as noticeable as people think, because that number from 253 could be 500, could be 1,000, without your hard work. And, we sit here and we have to find a balance between taking in more funds from taxes and understanding and supporting the businesses and the families that try to go to these businesses and doing the hard work. So those are just the comments. I want to give the floor to the city manager, because he had a couple comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through to the council. Councilors, thank you very much. As most of you know, just to recap some of the things that we have been discussing, there is a lot being done here in the city of Lowell right now, and I credit the council for that. I mean, Superior Courthouse has been a number of meetings with DCAM, and currently right now they're under what is referred to as a best use study. What can happen? What should happen there? We've been in contact with many of our nonprofit partners as to see what we could possibly do that. Some of our partners have even toured Superior Court, so I think that's an important piece to remember. When it comes to the Lowell District Court, that's been something that we've been working on for quite some time, and I'd like to say that the new governor stepping in, we should have another update in about 3 weeks, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks as to what we can and cannot do over at Lowell District Court. But it's important to know that we took the position on those 2 particular courthouses that DCAM have, that we're going to have the ability, the city now is going to have the ability to grow that or to move in that direction. That wasn't always the case. This council made that decision. The discussions between NEMCOG with all the town managers, myself, in regards to homelessness, it has come up. I have asked questions in regards to where, how can you help us? Where can we go with this? So those conversations are happening. Just today, ARPA monies, when it comes to the facilities and the renovations, we're probably, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Flynn on this, but we should be putting about $1.5 million on the street of the $2 million that we had put forth. And many of the nonprofits know that because we had a discussion today about what we can do, what can happen. There are a lot of aggressive asks. Some of those asks won't be fulfilled. But with the money that we had in this particular tranche, I'm making sure, as well as the entire administration, is ensuring that if we were to give this, could you still move forward? And the answer thus far has been yes. But as far as Ms. Fitzpatrick and Ms. Golden, I mean, I know they live this every day, but in the administration, you asked me to take this serious. This has been 2 times a week. Tewksbury State Hospital, once again, was discussed at NEMCOG meetings about how we can tackle this. But the partnerships are there. The conversations, both public and private, are happening right now within the city. I'm not really at liberty to say that because one of our major issues is land. Where can we be? Where can we go? How do we continue to build up? And I think you're going to hear that continued theme about building up, not out, simply because we do not have that land. And the second piece, which is a major issue, which is affecting small organizations as well as some of the largest organizations that have been in the city, and believe me, we have had plenty of these conversations, is the current percentage of borrowing. Borrowing rates are very high. Myself and the team, especially the CFO, we've been trying to find out, and we have talked to our friends over the Lowell Plan through the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Baez, to see what we can do, what we can leverage to bring that sometimes anywhere between 7.5% interest rate up to 9% interest rate on the borrowing cost of development. How can we fill that gap to make that happen? We have other positive things going right down on Merrimack Street right now with Acre Crossing. That's a very, very good piece. So there are a number of proposals that are before us. And as I've stated before, I truly believe that if it wasn't for the interest rate currently right now that's before us, we would have building. As I've stated here, as well as in other areas, we do have a great fire going, and we have irons around it, and people are ready to jump on this. This is a difficult discussion when it comes to finances. So once again, all of these 10 things, and I'm sure I missed, I'll probably get 4 or 5 things later on, but these are things that I'm writing down that each and every one of the councilors have approached me about to ensure that this is what we're doing. So to the public and to the nonprofits that are here, I say thank you, because many of you, we've talked, we've been in, we've had discussions about how to conquer this or how to take this on. So we are doing things. It's just this is very, very slow, and I'd say the 1 and 2 issue, and you can pick either one you'd like, is number 1 is land, and number 2 is the actual building costs. So thank you to the council very much for continuing to speak to me about this. Each and every one of you know that this is true, and thank you very much to the nonprofits who are trying to make heads or tails out of some of this. This is extremely difficult, but make no mistake about it. We are in this together. We will make this work. But once again, we're trying to figure out, and if anybody has that idea on the borrowing costs, how can we drive down the borrowing costs as your community, as our community, to help and assist growth in this city? Thank you very, very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Could I just ask the Director of Homeless a couple of questions, and Mayor Health Director as well, if they have a second?
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
So through you, Mr. Manager, to Health Director, or to Ms. Fitzpatrick. So when the co-op team or yourselves go out to the camps, has anybody that's ever asked for help been denied?
No.
Right. How often do you get affirmation, yes, I want help? Is it 1 out of 5, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 10? How many people actually want help when you ask them?
Well, there's different kinds of help. You know, there's medical help, there's detox, there's just, you know, do you have any water? That, you know, as far as, you know, shelter.
Has anybody asked for shelter?
We, you know, we offer shelter all the time.
Have anybody taken
Through
the city up on
co-op.
shelter?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, not as often as we would like to see.
Okay. So, you know, I don't know if this is to the manager or to whatnot, but when people continually refuse services, refuse help, the idea of the city just to leave them there? Like, you know, so what are we doing here? You know, I mean, I would think that everybody that wants assistance, that wants help, has that ability to get it. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Mostly when when the co-op's going out offering shelter, it's usually during winter protocol and also when the warming stations were open. So that's when people were taken off the streets, were when winter protocol or during shelter. At this point of the year, when people are going out to the encampments, people aren't asking for shelter or wanting to come off the streets.
Right.
Yep.
And I would imagine that most of those that on that list that we got today that are housed are people that reach out, that are looking for the assistance, you know, to nonprofit organizations and that obtain housing.
Right. Most of the people who are reaching out to like Mara's office or coming to the co-op looking for help, or people who are coming to the co-op looking for detox help, or people who are in fear of losing their apartments. So like, this is my last month for rent, and they're looking for, how do I get to CTI for assistance, or I'm on my friend's couch and they're getting tired of me, and how do I start looking for help? So that's a lot of what we're getting. Or, you know, my mother no longer wants me and I can afford a hotel for 3 nights. How can I then get into housing? That's a lot of the calls that we get.
Sure. And again, and going back to the original question, those that choose to live unhoused, that choose to live outside, and they are often...
Right. A lot of the people who are outside don't necessarily come to us looking for housing. If someone maybe is in an encampment and then goes to the hospital and then can't go back to their encampment for something, usually the hospital social services will help find a place or will go somewhere. It's not usually someone who's in an encampment and then says, unless there's extenuating circumstances and something's happening, there is a lot of, it's rough being out there. So maybe then something happens and then they're looking for help or befriend the co-op.
Sure. So just one more time.
Yep.
The co-op team, yourselves, you know, Ms. Fitzpatrick goes out there and someone says, I want housing, I want help. Have they been told, nope, no housing?
They would have them go back to the co-op. Councilor Mercier knows that people would come back to the co-op with the co-op, and they will do everything they can to find help for them. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, you know, to the point that's been made many times, Mr. Manager, you know, I think what your team's situation is that people that don't want the help, that choose to live outside, we just can't have it. You know, living in a tent in squalor and where there are all kinds of, again, like we said before, and this council already voted on it, it's a public health crisis. To leave them out there is doing more damage to them than packing them up and finding a spot for them to go, because the assistance is there, and if they choose not to take it, you know, we have to take it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke. Councilor Scott? Hold on a minute.
Sorry, my microphone wasn't on. Yeah, if you could step one more second, just to kind of piggyback on that a little bit. So I attended the call. I know both of you were on it with the Hunger Homeless Commission. And Joe Finn was on the call from Mass Housing and Shelter Alliance. And he had put some data out on the call. He had said that approximately 85% of the single homeless, I don't know, not families, right? Single homeless, suffered from some type of mental illness. He estimated 85%. And he said approximately 50%, I believe he said, were schizophrenic. That was the data that he had, I mean, approximately, that's what he had said. So my question is, as Councilor Rourke mentioned, the people that do not want to come in from, rough sleeping, I mean, it's not, we all agree, we don't want people unhoused in the city. It's not a humane situation. What are the technicalities with getting a population like that to agree to come in? Like, are there protections that are stopping you from requiring them to, receive services?
So at some point with the co-op going out there, if someone's not able to make their own decisions and something's going on medically, or they're not able to take care of themselves, and like Sue Levine said at Lowell Community Health, a lot of the clients are Lowell Community Health patients, and at some point if they're not able to take care of themselves, they become a Section 12 and end up going to the hospital where they're taken in against their will, and then the hospital takes care of them if they're not able to make their own decisions. So if they're in crisis, whether it be a mental health crisis or whatever it happens to be, the co-op and then the syringe coordinator and then the police on the co-op are in the encampments enough to know who's in there, and if they don't act like themselves from the time before, they will call the paramedics and have them be Section 12 and taken against their will.
So I guess my question would be, so living in substandard conditions without plumbing, I mean, we've seen some of the camps with piles of waste, needles, human waste. That does not justify somebody not being within their control, I guess is my question. Could we do more to section people that are living in those conditions as far as mental health goes?
Well, I mean, we could, but the hospital would be full of that, and then they wouldn't be able to care for anybody else. And when they get there and the doctor does his assessment on the patient, and they're alert and oriented, and they can stay their name and their date of birth, and there's no reason to hold them, the hospital has no reason to hold them. So then they let them go, and it's a misuse of the medical system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other speakers, do we want to stay under suspension of rules and just go through the motion responses that we have registered speakers for? Okay, motion response aye.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, on that particular motion that we just had with the four councilors, if there's no objection to the makers of the motion, would they object to a roll call on that?
Mr. Clerk, roll call on the motion.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Yes.
Council Janess.
Yes.
Hey, we're in the middle of roll call. Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem. Mayor Chow. Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
So on motion response aye. Interpretation services.
Mr. Mayor,
Is there
there's a
suspension of the
woman,
speakers?
could I suspend the rules to allow Ms.
Councilor
Fitzpatrick?
Mercia suspended the rules to
I'm sorry.
and seconded by Councilor Scott. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We just voted to,
We voted to accept the fact that homelessness is a public health crisis.
but what does that mean? After we just had the speakers and everything,
I don't.
there needs to be more substance
We have a
behind
point of order.
what we're doing here.
We have a point of order. That's something that you should be discussing with the city manager offline, not with the city council at this time. There's a organizational structure in the city. So if you have that question, that should go to the city manager, not to the council as a.
Sorry. Thank you.
Why would you object to that?
Suspend the rules for motion response interpretation services by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Noon. Mr. Clerk, registered speakers.
Yun Joy Choi.
Good evening, City Councilors, Vice Chair, and the City Manager. My name is Yoon Joo Chen. I'm the Executive Director of Coalition for a Better Acre. And I'm here to speak on the interpretation services for this meeting and public meetings motioned by Councilor Yam and Councilor Noon. As you know, I am the biggest advocate of language access, and I'm always excited to see any kind of motions to increase language access. However, I actually want to give you a little bit of pilot program that we have actually run before you make any decision, because this is a very expensive venture, and I would like all of you to get some information prior to voting on this. So there was actually a group called Working Cities Lowell. It was a Fed Reserve initiative that City of Lowell was awarded. And the partners for this was City of Lowell. It was headed by City of Lowell, CBA, CMAA, CTI, LHA, Lowell Housing Authority, UMass Lowell, Greater Lowell Community Foundation. So it was a lot of the partners that were here earlier today. One of the pilot program that this partnership actually did in 2019 was to translate city council meetings. So in August of 2019, we got funding from Eastern Bank to translate city council meetings. Number one, it was very, very difficult to actually find people to be able to interpret 3.5 hours of meeting. So it wasn't just hiring someone to do interpretation for 3.5 hours. I saw the report. It indicates that it would cost $900 a meeting. I'm not sure if it meant by one language or all three languages, but if it were all three languages, there's no way that it can be translated for $900. So after doing the translation, we actually had some showing parties with Khmer community as well as Spanish community members. And what we learned from the group, and we actually also did some focus groups, and what we learned from the community members is that community members indicated that the meetings were too long and boring, and they wouldn't watch the meetings on a regularly, even if it was translated into their language. Also, as I said, it was very time-consuming and expensive, and in the report you mentioned that you can actually use ARPA funds to do this. If you were to do this, like, what is your sustainability plan for it? Because again, it's not going to be $50,000 here. It's probably going to be $150,000 a year. And then the other thing for you to consider is, do you have any data of how many people are actually watching the meeting? I know I watch the meeting every week, but I think there are very few people that are actually watching the meetings. And also in Khmer, Spanish, and Portuguese, how many of those people would actually watch for it to be impactful for the city? So I think you do have to consider a lot of these type of things before you make a decision to translate. I do, however, think it would be very helpful for the city to translate public meetings and always have translators at the during elections at the polling locations, and also the other thing that I always advocate for is city services, police, and fire. Last year, all of you at an executive session made decision to award Mr. Rosario $13 million. In 1982. He was wrongly convicted. Some of it was because of the language barrier. 40 years later, City of Lowell still doesn't have language access at the police or fire, and I think that's shameful. And last year, actually, I believe it was February, Councilor Mercier made a motion to have language line for the City of Lowell. Year and a half later, that hasn't been implemented. So my question to all of you is, when you pass a motion, how long does it take to get implemented?
Ms. Choi, we're coming up on the 5-minute mark.
Sure. So that's all actually I wanted to just say, that before you make decision to implement this, that you should consider the cost and how impactful this is. So thank you very much.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Everything that Youngsoo Chua spoke of is something that I had in mind as well with regard to this motion response. I agree that having funding come from ARPA is not going to be sustainable. I also agree that watching a 3-hour, 4-hour council meeting, no one want to do that. It is our responsibility. We have to be here. We have to do our job. But for those who are translating, for those who are at home. So my thought was, as Youngsoo indicated, there's a working city law initiative, as she mentioned. There's a lot of nonprofit group there. Want to refer this motion response to that the nonprofit subcommittee, and so that to invite the group to come and then share their thought. Then we can come back to the council to talk about, what is the right figure, right? In terms of, do we have someone, interpreter come in for 4 hours? Or do we want to summarize the meeting afterwards so that viewer at home can, those who doesn't speak the language can, catch on to it? Or do we maybe a certain motion that being filed that maybe a speaker who doesn't speak English, who speaks Spanish or Portuguese or Cambodian, maybe we have interpreters there. So don't know yet. I don't know, okay? So this motion response going to say, okay, can we send this to a nonprofit subcommittee and then inviting the working initiative, City of Lowell initiative that consists of those partners, those organizations that Youngsoo Chua brought up to give their input. And then we take it from there as a council one way or the other. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor to send this to the nonprofit subcommittee, seconded by Councilor Janess. Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I read the motion response, and I'm also concerned about the cost that the city will bear on having the service, knowing that it is critical to have the access, language access for various meetings in the city of Lowell. My thought is this: if someone who wants to watch the council meeting, similar to be speaking on a certain motion, they will request and say, I would like to have a Khmer speaking translator for the council meeting on this day and that day. So that person reach out to the clerk and register as the speakers. But instead of speaking it, they say, I'd like to register to have interpreter, Khmer interpreter, Spanish, Portuguese, be on the meeting on such a day, such a day. The other thought that after reading the response, I was thinking about if someone at home, Portuguese, is there a capability that they can select the language, just like the city website, what language do you speak? So if we have a subtitle on the TV, that the viewer at home who speak Portuguese or Spanish or Khmer can select the language, and then that subtitle caption will be in their native language. I know for Portuguese, Spanish, it will be easier, but for Cambodian, for Khmer would be a bit difficult because we don't use, Latin characters. But hopefully, that's the only one language that will be an issue. However, other other languages can be subtitle or caption similar to we watch TV. So that will be also less cost maybe to the city. And then we deal with the Khmer person who want to watch, request through the clerk to have an interpreter to help during the certain council meeting, similar to what the speaker talked about. You know, not all of them want to watch a 3 hours meeting, but a certain segment of the council meeting, they would like to have interpreter, Khmer interpreter, that will be translate that section of the council meeting. And that's just my thought. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Lam. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't support this going to a nonprofit subcommittee. You know, this invented outrage that comes up in front of us once in a while. I think Councilor Yum's suggestions are much more reasonable and feasible. I'd just see something done in that sense, but I will not support this going to a nonprofit subcommittee.
Mr. Clerk, can we take a roll call on the motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Just through you to the manager. I just want to clarify one thing too. When I was talking to one of the volunteers at City Hall, aren't we using a computer program down there where you can come in and they help you interpret your language and speaks to you in your language? Yeah, so we're using that at City Hall. Yeah, all right, that's what I thought.
Councilor Mercia.
And thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm a little, well, I'm saying a little, but I'm a little more than a little upset with hearing that they don't have that interpretation device in the police department. I think that's very, very important in City Hall. I mean, I'm not so concerned about TV or meetings or whatever, but I am concerned about public safety places, City Hall, where you have interpreters or that program, because a person went to the police department. This what prompted me to make this in February, and Young Jung Choos never forgot that, and I thought that I had heard that it was going to be implemented. They must have said that to pacify me, we're going to do it, but I took it that they were going to do it and it already was there. I'm disappointed because that's important. A lady fled to the police department, to the lobby, to the person out there and said in her language that she was being brutally beaten by a domestic violence situation. And because there were no interpreters to help her, they sent her on her way back to the person that was beating her. That, to me, is a crime in itself. So that's the importance of the motion that I made in February, to learn now that it isn't even there. Why do we make no motions for if they ain't going anywhere? Maybe the lady by now is dead. Did we ever think about that? I mean, I'm disappointed and disgusted, but...
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Janess.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
No.
Councilor Rourke.
No.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow. Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
9 yeas, 8 yeas.
Mr. Mayor.
8 yeas, motion passes. Councilor Janess.
Thank you. While we're still under suspension of the rules, could we take 4.2, the informational report for the Substance Abuse Prevention Forum, out of order, as I believe we have someone here to speak on that?
Motion by Councilor Janess, seconded by Councilor Mercier. 4.2, informational report. Information report, Substance Abuse Prevention Forum. Do we have a registered speaker, Mr. Clerk?
I don't.
Does somebody want to suspend the rules to allow the speaker to speak?
Move to suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I was hoping for an introduction by the city manager, but I just want to thank the city administration for co-sponsoring and co-hosting a substance abuse prevention.
Mr. Gignac, we have to state our name and where we live.
I forgot about that, yeah. Robert
I know the
Gignac.
manager could have done that.
I was hoping he would. Robert Gignac, 91 Llewellyn Street. I'm here in my capacity as Chief Operating Officer of the Lowell Community Charter Public School. As I mentioned, we're honored to partner with the City of Lowell and the Lowell Public Schools to present a substance abuse prevention forum with special guest speaker Chris Herron. At this event, we will have live interpretation, timely subject, and have provided translated flyers to the council and to our community partners, and hope that you will help us distribute these materials through your social media and other venues. About a decade ago, I partnered with then State Representative Tom Golden to do this exact same thing when I served on the school committee with the support of then school committee member Kim Scott. We were able to launch substance abuse prevention and awareness programs in all of our public schools. The opioid pandemic has not gone away, and with mental health and substance abuse on the rise in our community, our partners think it's critically important to continue to inform folks about prevention and awareness programming around substance abuse. And so I ask you all to attend, but also help us get the word out to the various stakeholders in the community. This forum itself is open for all ages, not just students and staff in the school system, but for all community members. And Chris will be joining us at LCCPS in the afternoon, and then speaking to the city as a whole that evening. So I thank you all, and thank you to the manager for supporting us with this important forum. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. Does anybody have any comments on the information report? Councilor Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we're all set with the information report, could we do motion response N, please?
Motion by Councilor Rook to take motion response N out of order. Motion response MVHP housing. Is there a second? Councilor Drinkwater. Is there any registered speakers, Mr. Clerk?
Kathy Mercado.
Good evening, City Council members, Vice Chair Gitchier. Sorry, I have allergies. Everyone else should have allergies too, not just myself. City Manager Golden, thank you for having us here. I just want to say I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm sure it's just allergies. Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership has a long history working with the City of Lowell in regards to down payment assistance and rehabilitation. We have expanded our partnership with City Manager Golden since he's took the helm. He's very, I just want to talk a little bit about the partnership, because with you have really done a great job in regards to reaching out and looking for opportunities to help first-time home buyers. I also want to thank Yervani and Camilo and her administration for really doing a great job in regards to this motion response in conjunction with Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership. I really didn't think my voice was that. Next time, I wish I had water. All right, so everyone should have in their packet a slide deck that we did. We didn't bring it to be posted, but it's long, and I know you all have a lot of motions to get to. So I just want to highlight some of the things that we're working on. The City of Lowell and the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership has like I said, a long-standing history with the City of Lowell. The organization, we only have 4 employees. I have 2 of my employees that have dedicated their night to be here, Leslie Briones and Jennifer Fendara. We are a bilingual boutique staff, nonprofit. We're really tiny. However, we do a lot of work in our small organization. MVHP has a strong reputation with the City of Lowell and the community. Last year, 40% of our program participants came to MVHP through word of mouth, and another 25% were referred by lenders. Our main objectives is sustaining our successful homebuyer training programs and counseling services, engaging younger households who plan for home ownership in the context of current and housing market, and high levels of student debt for many young workers. expanding down payment assistance programs in towns surrounding like the city of Lowell where they do not currently exist. I just want to point out our long-term impact. Our programs aim to increase homeownership opportunities for households for all income levels and reduce racial disparities in the region. We reach around 800 households each year, and I know that's going to grow. We also promote the programs to, the lending and real estate brokerage communities. We have educated over 20,000 first-time homebuyers in 3 different languages, and we hope to grow that because in the city of Lowell, as we all know, I think it's 53 or 59 languages that we speak. I like the smiles in your head. Everyone's smiling. I don't know if it's my voice or what, but I'll take it. We played a key role in mitigating a negative impact and foreclosure crisis in the Greater Lowell. We've launched Don't Borrow Trouble campaign, which prevented many homebuyers from failing and prying to predatory lenders. We also provide services for the lead paint or get the lead out. In the city of Lowell, there's many, many homes that have lead, and we know how detrimental that is to the health of our children. We get poison cases all the time from the state, and we do work a lot with the state as well as the city and the Get the Lead Out program through mass housing. Look, I'm not going to read off of this because that's just not my style. I just want to say that we really need to focus on home ownership. I know that the unhoused is an issue too, and I wanted to jump up and be one of the speakers. However, I didn't find out about that motion till this morning. You know, I'm standing before you, and if you really want to look at what someone that's unhoused looks like, you're looking at someone. Because I was unhoused at 17. So if I can become a homeowner, you know, we can't put everyone in a box. We really need to put home ownership. We want to create, I know it's a breeze, like a tag word right now about creating generational wealth, but that's the truth, because once you break the cycle, you can create generational wealth. Both of my daughters are in their 20s, and not just because I'm doing this work, because I made them do it on their own. They both own homes, and they're in their 20s, and I want that for everyone in our community who wishes to own a home. It's really important. You know, when we're talking about housing and how much housing we need housing in the city of Lowell. I was born and raised here. My family came here in the 1960s. You know, we have deep, deep roots in the city. So doesn't a lot of the unhoused population. But in regards to home ownership, we need to look at other alternatives and other funding sources through CDBG funds, through OPER funds, through CPA funds, creating the 1+ Lowell to buy down the interest rate.
Ms. Mercado, we're coming up on the 5-minute mark.
Really? That's because
It goes
I went
by
off the
fast.
cuff.
You should see how quick it goes by
Okay,
when I
that's
talk.
fine. I just want to say, when I come up in front of you again, when I don't have these allergies that are killing me today, that we bring programs to you, I hope you support them, and I hope you open up your minds to look at other resources that we can help our community members, because again, you know, I want someone just like me to have the same opportunities that I had, and I'm standing in front of you here as the executive director of a nonprofit promoting generational wealth for all Lowellians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mercado. Councilor Yem.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you to the speaker, and I just want to attest that MVHP had played an instrumental for a lot of Khmer family that I work with. Back in the 90s and 2000, I had an opportunity to work with Jim Weil at MVHP, providing the first-time home buyer in Khmer. So I would teach a class in Khmer, and after they graduated, at the time, the student will receive down payment assistance, $5,000 at the time, and then it go up to $10,000. Does the city and the MVHP still provide that down payment assistance, Kathy?
Come to the mic, please, Ms. Mercado. Thank you.
You said I have 1 minute. Vice Chair.
I didn't know he was
Yes,
gonna
we
ask.
still provide down payment assistance with the city in partnership, $11,800 for first-time home buyers. We also have a partnership with Lowell Financial and Development Corporation. They help the people that don't qualify for the city of Lowell. Basically, you know, it's a kindness thing from that organization where people with higher incomes don't qualify, and we can also use that. But we have great programs.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. I just want to make the people at home aware of that. If they register and they go through the training, we receive a certificate, and then they also can apply for the down payment assistance from the city and from LDFC, as you mentioned. Thank you. You mentioned about the limited staff. At the time, Jim Weil partners with various organizations, with the Cambodian American League to teach the class in Khmer, and then with other nonprofit who provide maybe training in Spanish and Portuguese as well. So MVHP does not have to do all of that, but by partnership with various organizations with language capacity can help spread the word as well. So that's just my observation. And in addition, if I may expand a little bit for the sake of our people who watch at home, that the Lowell Housing Authority has under the Section 8 program, the HUD program, they have their home ownership program. And in my business, I help some family who receiving Section 8 payment for rent that apply toward the purchase of a single home. There's a qualification that they go through as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that in addition to MVHP, Lowell Housing Authority also can help people who are receiving Section 8 voucher payment toward we become an ownership, and then that voucher go toward the monthly payment instead of paying rent. Now they pay mortgage using that, but again has to qualify under a certain income. The concern that I have would be, as a real estate market in Lowell is really hard, even though right now the interest rate, if you score at about 680, right now the interest rate is about 7.37, and the median single home price in Lowell is you're talking about $400,000 or $500,000, and my fee is that the average first-time home buyer may not qualify, and that's what brings me to the next step is that the city of Lowell provide through CPA and other affordable housing development. I would like to see in the future a certain number of units for affordable housing dedicated to home ownership, similar to the Acre Crossing unit that are affordable, but they dedicated 7 units for home ownership. You talked about the generational wealth building. So I think in the future, I would like to see that any affordable housing development in Lowell that the city funded, supported, will dedicate a certain percentage for home ownership. Start out small as a condo, a townhouse, and hopefully that will help them, as you mentioned, that it helps you build that generational wealth. So thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Can I kindly respond to that, please? Just quickly, just because I want to make sure I make these points. So one, we do collaborate with CMAA. We have a long partnership with them, and we do teach classes in Khmer. We also are in partnership with the developer at Acre Crossing, so we will be the listing agent to make it the streamline easier for our first-time home buyers. So all of the things that you mentioned, Councilor Yam, we are doing already, and we're in partnership with those nonprofits, and especially Lowell Housing. I look forward to what they're going to do with the 28 units, and hopefully we'll be streamlining that process as well.
Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Real quick, I myself went through MVHP years ago, bought my house, and that's where I still reside. So, I mean, honestly, at the time, I was looking to rent the class. They inform you, by the time you finish that class, you're ready to buy if that's the path you want to go. And I think it's a great program. I just would like to see, what are the current fees for someone? I believe when I took it, it was a price for the course, but I could add an additional person, so it's pretty much 2 certificates for the same price.
Exactly, it's the same. Our prices are a little higher than others because that's basically what we do. It's $125. However, we do have partnerships with UMass and MCC for their employees that are low to moderate income earners, and we waive the fee for them. But it is $125, and actually, if you're signing up, it could be 2 or 3 people, and it's still just $125.
Through you to the city manager, you think there'd be a possibility we could look into potentially working with MVHP for a program like that for our employees, where we might be able to cover that initial payment for the course as a first-time home buyer, and just another incentive for our employees?
Mr. Manager?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council, and of course to Ms. Mercado, of course. I think we have a great relationship, and anything that we can do to encourage home ownership here in the city, especially with our employees, or I'd even go one step further if we can get Lowellians. Maybe we can look at that as well. We have a really tremendous partner in Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership with Ms. Mercado and our entire team over at DPD. So it's a great relationship. We just need more stock. And I think people, if we had more stock out there, more housing opportunities, a lot of these people that they're putting through this program, they'd be living right here in the city. So that's obviously the number of things, Councilor, that myself and all of us have talked about, putting that affordable home ownership program or ideas first. So I'm confident if we can build it, she can fill them. I'm very confident of that.
I mean, most of our participants are all from Lowell, at least 70%, and they still want to own a home. So, yeah. I'm going to go before Council Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Councilor Rook.
This is all great stuff. Thank you very much. I know the effort put into it. So I had 2 people today before the meeting. Who they contact? Who they get a hold of to partake in the programs?
Sure. So they can reach us at our website, which mvhp.org. They can call us at 978-459-8490. We have certified HUD counselors with Jennifer and Leslie and Nellie. So yeah, they could just reach out to us. And thank you for bringing the motion, Councilor Work and Councilor Noon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Noon and seconded by Councilor Yum. Now we'll go back to the regular agenda. City Clerk, 3.1, minutes of the City Council regular meeting of April 25th and continued to May 2nd for acceptance. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Leahy. 4, communications from the city manager. 4.1, motion responses. Motion A, upgrade to the city baseball and softball fields. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I'm glad to see it came together. I think it was a learning process for everyone involved, and hopefully with future projects like this, we really roll up our sleeves and dial into what we're looking for before the bid goes out. Thank you.
If there's no objections, I just have a couple of questions through you, Mr. Manager, to the Parks Department Superintendent, if that's okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Cohen. So it's a great outline, and I'm just wondering, what does complete to specs mean? You read it, I'm just looking for clarification in this piece, that's all.
So each field completed to specs would be exactly that, completed to the specs.
Are we happy with the results of the fields?
I'm very happy with them. I've had one complaint. Actually, I got that one complaint today out of the 27. I got the complaint coming here, actually. I immediately contacted the contractor, and he said he would definitely take care of it.
Okay, so it met all the league's expectations?
As far as I've heard, yes. I've only heard one complaint.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Councilor Yum.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I read through the whole thing, and I'm looking for how come North Common is not part of the field, because North Common is also is a league as well. So I just have a question for the superintendent of park.
Through you,
They went
Mr.
through,
Manager.
one of the league officials contacted me about upgrading 27 of the 34 fields. Some of the fields at the time were going to be under reconstruction shortly. In North Common, we kind of skinned that out ourselves last year and converted that ourselves on the city side. So that's why it wasn't part of the upgrades. I know the irrigation will be upgraded this year as well over there. So that field should be back in decent shape.
Yeah, last year, the Vice Mayor, Councilor Robinson, and I attend the Roberto Little League, and we were noticing the fence was not right. It's all broken. It could causing some youngster who chase after the ball, some injuries and all of that. So, and then I think it was brought up, and I think it may have been corrected. And
Yeah, the fence at County Field was fixed, yes.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to mention that at the time that this motion was discussed, it was right prior to the start of baseball season, and a lot of work was being done to wrap up these fields, and there were a couple issues that just needed to be addressed as games and practices were starting. I just want to mention that within days after that initial discussion, a few of the concerns that were raised to me prior to the meeting were addressed by the Parks Department and the contractor, like I just said, within days of the discussion. So appreciate the quick response at the time that this motion was made, and want to thank both the Parks Department and the contractor for getting on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Leahy.
Same thing. I just wanted to echo that, in the beginning, all the issues were addressed, and I see the commissioners here too. The dead limbs around certain parks were picked up too, so I think it was an all-around effort to get the fields up and to make sure that the surrounding areas were picked up of leaves and debris and all that. So they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. See no other questions. We'll move on to
Mr.
motion
Mayor?
response. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Janess, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. I just was wondering if we could entertain a motion to take 8.12 out of order. I know we normally don't bump up motions when it's just city employees that are here to speak on it, but Mr. Fernandez has had a couple rough weeks, and I'd like to get him home if I can.
Motion by Councilor Janess to suspend the rules to take 8.12 out of order. Councilor Janess, Councilor Noon requests the city manager provide a public update on the recent cybersecurity incident, including timeline for restoration of all impacted city services. Seconded by Councilor Noon. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought it was important. I spoke to Councilor Janess to have Mr. Fernandez here, Menon Fernandez, to kind of talk about this and not wait a week, because obviously information has been coming out rather rapidly, and I hope that's okay with the council to actually start to try to answer this question, this motion. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilor Janess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Yes, I just wanted to kind of touch base on this. We've all been talking offline about it, but I've gotten a lot of questions from the public. Some things I'm sure we can talk about right now, and some things I'm sure we either want to wait to talk about or don't want to talk about publicly at all. But just basically, the first questions that are presented to me are, what do I do if I need a building permit, if I have trash that didn't get picked up? All the standard questions that people normally rely on the city to help with. And this interruption, can they call the police non-emergency number? Can they submit something through Civic Plus? Will that get to the department it needs to get to, et cetera, et cetera? So if we can start with just kind of addressing where that lies and what the public can and can't do for accessing services right now, I think that's a good place to start. Thank you.
Mr. Manager. Mr. Fernandez. Welcome.
Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councilor. Fundamentally, your question is a great question, and the answer is that the operations for the city are all functioning. There hasn't been any delay in being able to reach out to folks, albeit for the one day when we had our phones initially down. But the website is still up and running. Anyone submitting anything through Civic Plus is still getting communicated to the city, coming in through email, which we have off-site, kind of like the website. And all those functions have been continuing through the city, albeit maybe a little slower in terms of response, but they are continuing.
Great, thank you for that. The police non-emergency number, is that working?
Yes, it is.
All right, that's great. And I also just would be remiss if I didn't take a minute to just say thank you to you and your team for all the work you've been doing over the past 2 weeks. I know it's been a battle, and it's been a long road, and it's been something that everybody who's spent time in the information technology world, we've all been there, we've all done it, and we know how much of a grind it is. So thank you to you and your team for doing that. And also thank you so much to Auditor Oakes and her staff for completing what was probably the most difficult payroll to ever go through the city of Lowell, and get everyone paid and get them paid on time. I know that was a huge concern for everyone in the administration, and pulling together and getting this done and taking care of the employees was of utmost importance. And everyone's team's shown and really buckled down and got that done. And I know that every staff member is appreciative of that work. And thank you to all the other staff in the city as well who've really had to go above and beyond to be creative and resourceful in accomplishing their day-to-day tasks. This is not normal operations by any stretch of the imagination, and I know some staff are impacted much more than others, but I do know from talking to a bunch of people that people are doing what they can to get the job done. And personally, I just want to say that I appreciate that from each and every staff member of the city. I know it's a lot of work, and I know it's tough, and I know that things are not the way they'd like them to be. But everyone's working hard, and I appreciate that. I do have some questions specifically around the incident itself, and how we're coming back from it. Some of it is a little nitty gritty, and I don't want to get into too many details here and put people to sleep at home. But there's concern about data. What was lost? Do we know what was lost? Is that something that we are prepared to answer tonight? Was any data taken from the system? Have we been in communication with the group that took it? What are their demands? That kind of thing. Just to kind of understand where things are right now. And this may not be something we can talk about right now, but I had to ask the question. Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez.
Sure, Councilor. If I may, I'd like to offer an analogy. Everyone knows about the water main break earlier this year. It was front and foremost for everyone throughout the city, down on Moody Street. Water main breaks are things that, when they happen, which they happen around the country often for a variety of reasons, water floods buildings, they flood the basements, they ruin electrical equipment, etc. Eventually the water is fixed and there's no more water, but you can walk down the street and you can see these buildings. They have no scars on them. They haven't had a fire. There hasn't been an earthquake. The buildings look fine. They look perfectly fine, but they're not always habitable because the infrastructure has been hit. The water has damaged the infrastructure that has to be replaced. If you imagine the city, basically we had a bunch of water pour in and the infrastructure was hit, and we're not vacating and telling everyone we're closed. We've still got people working and doing everything, albeit a little bit slower. In the analogy, maybe the elevators don't work for the high rise and folks have to take the stairs, so they're a little inconvenienced, but they can all still stay in the building. And while we're doing the work in the basement, we suddenly discovered that there's other structural elements, supporting beams that have to be replaced. So now we have to come in and put everything in place temporarily while we pull out the supporting beams and bring in new supporting beams while everyone is still in the building, going about their business. Nobody is getting hurt. Nothing is stopping everyone from doing their work. They can still come and go. That's basically, to a large degree, what we're dealing with here. The reason that we're calling it a cyber-related event, which a lot of people have taken issue with, is because the terminology is something that's really evolving across the country. There are new cyber rules across the federal government, at the state agencies, etc. And they're called cyber-related events because the old terms of breaches and hacks and ransoms and all this stuff really become very cloudy and really kind of get all lumped together, when in fact, sometimes they do work together and in hand, other times they're not. In our case specifically, we had an event. Without getting into the details, because it is an ongoing active investigation with federal agencies right now, we had an event. So that's mark 0. Kind of like when we're talking about COVID, we always had the issue of having people realize from the time that someone is exposed, day 0, and how many days things go. We're marking it as day 0, April 24th. We had an event. We assessed it. We spent a week working with federal agencies doing our obligatory reporting to the state and federal agencies, which in and of itself is still evolving. So the federal agencies had to coordinate among themselves to make sure, is there anybody else that needs to be notified? At the state level, we had to reach out to everybody from the Department of Revenue to individual vendors to let them know, hey, this happened, just so that we're covering all our bases. That took a week before we were released by the federal government, who said, yep, you've met all your federal obligatory requirements. The state said you've met them as well. During that week, we spent the whole week assessing things, trying to identify things, bringing in folks to look and assess, and figuring out what do we have for resources, what do we have for equipment. Fortunately, during the COVID days, one of the things that we received were laptops. We still had some laptops that were in boxes that hadn't been deployed. We needed to make sure we had clean equipment, things that we didn't have to worry about anything on. Pulled those out, got those running. We had other systems that were in the process of being built at other sites, brought those back, got those running. So in the analogy of the building, we basically started ripping out those supporting beams, putting in temporary things to buttress up the whole building and hold it up while we started rebuilding our infrastructure. Unfortunately, all of this infrastructure is something that people call hidden systems. Most people don't think about it. You pick up the telephone, you get a dial tone. That dial tone is only there as a courtesy signal. It's generated to make you feel warm and fuzzy. It doesn't have to be there. Those are hidden systems you don't think about till they don't work. Likewise, the city is full of hidden systems, whether it's the ability for the city clerk's office to be able to generate things that are necessary for vital records, generate birth certificates, marriage certificates, etc. Whether it's taking the collections, whether it's all the work that goes into the payroll, whether it's all the work that goes into elections. All of these different elements throughout the city are puzzle pieces that basically we had to shake up that box completely, take everything and lay out the puzzle again and start over. So at this point in time, the first priority, apart from public safety, which is obviously an overriding priority, was to make sure everybody got paid, which we worked very closely with the auditor's office. And I know you mentioned it to your point. That was the most single difficult payroll ever done, only because we had to get a system up and running. We moved all of Munis into the cloud so that it's running elsewhere, which they really went above and beyond to make this work. It wasn't up and running until the event occurred on the 24th. It wasn't up and running until the following Monday at around 1 p.m. So we had Monday from 1 p.m. till Wednesday at 5 p.m. to get all of payroll processed, get everything to the bank, and get everybody paid. Even the folks at Tyler were holding their breath. And it was a very exciting thing for the entire auditing team to be able to accomplish this and get it done. So we got everybody paid. And the very next thing we turned to were revenues. We needed to make sure that we could get all our revenues in the treasurer's office. Start looking at all the other elements of the city, the accounts payable. Make sure that we can pay our vendors, pay the bills. We don't want anyone to claim we got bad bills because of this. Nobody here wants bad bills, right? So we've moved everything through the process operationally, bringing things up, permitting. Permitting has been online. It's been running. It's been available. And we've got everything running at this time in pieces, slowed down. So in the analogy of the building, the elevators aren't working yet. People have to walk. But you can get from where you need to go to where you're trying to get to. And we are slowly bringing things back up. In terms of computers on desktops, there's a security philosophy of trust nothing. And basically, even though we're not saying all the computers were affected or damaged or whatnot, we can't trust them. We don't want to take the chance of having something pull the rug from under our feet while we're bringing things back up and running. So everything had to be collected. Everything had to be wiped. It's all being wiped. It's all being redeployed piece by piece. And along with that, we're rolling out new tools that are tools that we've had our eyes on for years, and now's the moment to do it. And with the manager's support and finance team support, being able to get these tools implemented, it is a huge step forward for us security-wise, whether it's multi-factor authentication or whether it's other heuristics that we're using in place of antivirus tools to help us move forward. That's what we're doing, and we're doing it methodically. We're doing it based on best practices. And in a conversation we had yesterday with the FBI in Boston, San Antonio, and San Francisco, they were all blown away that we've done what we've done in as short a period as we've managed to accomplish it, and the fact that we've got very clear roadmaps, parallel roadmaps. It's not about getting me out tonight. There are still people in the EOC right now working. This has been the MIS teams from police, the MIS teams from fire, the MIS teams from City Hall. We have third parties that are also lending a hand, and we're leveraging the vendors that we've worked with over the past, I've been here 23 years, and these vendors have come out and made sure that we have the tools that we need to get things going. And we're in a really good place right now.
I really appreciate that summary and the work, as I said, that everyone's done. I think we're making great strides, and I fully support the concept of making improvements while you have everything taken apart anyway. If you're working on a car and you have to replace something in the transmission, maybe you replace the clutch while you're in there. Like, it makes sense. And this is the same kind of process. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a better mousetrap. And that's really what it's all about. So these cyber attacks aren't going anywhere. They're continuing to increase. Municipalities are a high target right now. And I don't think anything's going to go away. So whatever we can do to shore up our systems so that the next time we're in someone's crosshairs, we're in a better position than we are now, the better we can do. You mentioned having outside hands helping. I think that's great. I think that's really important. If there's any other resources, Mr. Manager or Mr. Fernandez, that you feel you need, please know that I would be all in favor of supporting those resources in order to get things back up and running, to make sure that everyone in the city is able to get their work done efficiently and safely. As I said, there is still some concern that's been presented to me about not knowing if any data was exfiltrated, and if it was, what was it. But I understand we're still trying to figure that out, and we're still working with federal partners to answer those questions. So it may not be something we can answer now, but I appreciate you being here to give us this update. It's very important, and I look forward to the day you come in and say, we're all done. We all went home at 5 o'clock today. That'll be a great day. Thank you all.
Councilor Noon.
Mr. Vice Mayor, appreciate it. I thank you, Mr. Miranda, for the report. And thank you for your team and others who help in terms of helping to address this ongoing concern. So from hearing you speak around data, you indicated that there's no data was lost, and that you're still working, trying to regain some of the data, and there's an ongoing investigations with assistance of federal agencies. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So will we at some point know, how long will it take for us to know what, if any, data, recover or not recover?
Yes, sir. I can tell you right now that in terms of two parts to your question, in terms of the city data, there is no data that we know of that was lost, except for anything that would have been on someone's local desktop. We have network drives that for 23 years we've been instructing everyone to save things on their network drives, not on their local desktops. Unfortunately, as folks work, oftentimes they'll put something on their desktop, forget to put it on a network drive. Because of the nature of how we had to collect all the devices and had to assume that everything was just questionable, we basically had to wipe all the machines, and anyone who had data on their desktops did lose it. That includes, even if you didn't have data on your desktop, that includes bookmarks, say, for example, for a browser that you used, for where to go. And those are things that are certainly collateral damage in terms of I've spent probably Saturday 2.5 hours trying to figure out how to do something that I would have done in 5 minutes if I had my bookmarks on my desktop. And it was frustrating, but that's something that did happen. In terms of the data that we have in the network, none of that was lost. We have delays in restoring it because typically the systems we have in place and the way that they are set up to be resilient, everything had to be wiped, everything had to be shut down, turned off, and we are restoring using methods that we typically wouldn't, tape drives and stuff, which take a significant amount of time and effort to restore because we have a lot of data.
Thank you for your effort and continue working on this. Would you please report, give an update to the council when you get those information? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Councilor Yem.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want to thank the MIS and the whole team, Mr. Manager, all the hard work. And I know it is difficult. I lost my computer because not being attacked, but it's just like the computer crashed, so I lost everything. So I gotta go back and try to reboot it and try to extract some data from the hard drive. That's just one computer. Imagine you have the whole city. And I'm glad to hear that you have a second authentication with the new system set up now, which I think is really, really critical because nowadays you log into any website, they send you a second authentication to your either website, your cell phone, or your email. So I just want to comment on that. I just have one quick question. I have received this email through Barracuda and this city email system, and I know I never set any email through the city, so it come out as pm@lowma.gov, and I said I never have any email set through the city. But that's kind of concerns me because I don't have any Barracuda or the city email. I always use my personal. Is this something that I should be worried about, right?
I wouldn't be worried about it. What I would tell everyone to do is the federal government for years has had an initiative that they've called Stop, Think, and Click. And basically it is something they try to ingrain in all their employees in terms of when you're going to a website, when you're receiving email, etc. There are a lot of coincidences that have been occurring recently that folks are trying to attribute to this. For example, during COVID, I don't know how many of you received unemployment filings, but during the years of COVID, I received 3 or 4. There have been people recently that have received unemployment filings, like immediately after this event occurred. And, you know, a lot of people have made a lot of that, but quite frankly, no offense to the state or Department of Unemployment, but you could only wish they worked that fast, right? I mean, it doesn't work that fast where someone files and 2 days later you've got something saying, oh, you filed for unemployment. It usually takes a while. So there's a lot of coincidences that people are attributing to this. So we're hoping to stop the rumors and get folks to understand that during the course of any period of time, there are events that take place across the country. Last week alone, between Monday and Friday, there were 37 different government organizations that had cyber events. Just last week. Dallas, last week, I'm sure folks have heard about Nashua. Nashua had a big event there. So it happens often, and there are things we can do to improve our security posture, like the multi-factor authentication, which is what we are implementing now. And there are other things that we can do to improve our overall organizational preparations. We have cybersecurity training that unfortunately many folks didn't participate in, but now we're going to be turning off accounts if they don't participate. So it's like you don't take your training, we're going to shut off your account and make you take it.
One last question. Are we 100% online on all departments? The reason I'm asking because I have a real estate closing and the closing attorney requests the final water bill reading, and I received a phone call from the water department that the system is not up and running yet. So, and request that the closing attorney set aside certain amount of money in escrow down the road later when the city can generating the final water reading. So
I will follow up with the water department, Counselor, if you want to reach out to me and just share some basic info later. I'll reach out to them on that because they are able to access things. Not everything is accessible at each site. When we disconnected everything, we literally had to do, this was the biggest reboot in the city's history. We had to unplug, turn everything off. That was the reason that telephones were initially disabled. It wasn't because of anything to do with the cyber incident. It was because we literally had to unplug from everything. And as we've brought sites back up, which includes the water department, they do have phones, we've also enabled facilities here in City Hall for departments to come to conduct business if they can't do it at their office yet. So the water department can come here. There are spaces where they can sit and they can work. That generally holds true throughout the organization. For example, Development Services just got computers today on their desks, but they could conduct all their business prior to that, and they could do it in the training room. So even if an office isn't specifically up and running completely, there are facilities for them to get their work done, to get into Munis and do stuff like that.
again, I just want to thank you for your hard work, and thanks managers and the team who are on top of this and get this running.
If I may, one thing that is down is GIS. So we have received calls from a variety of personnel that are trying to conduct work on closings and whatnot, that are trying to get to assessor records. Yeah. We direct everyone to the assessor's office directly for those records because they can get them there, as opposed to the convenience of what used to be available online, because those systems are down online right now. Yeah. But they are available in the assessor's office, sir.
Thank you.
If there's no objections, I just have a statement. I don't really need a response. I just want to let the public know, before you try to get a service from the city of Lowell, you should pick up the phone and call there before you do that, because some of the services are not available. And it takes, like marriage certificates, there's a few things that are not available. So please pick up the phone and call which service you're looking for. The water department, Councilor Yem, will not come here for 25 closings. So, it's a pick between stuff. I just want to make a statement. I don't need really a response. Just pick up the phone and call whatever department you're going to first before you drive to City Hall. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. All right, seeing no more suspensions of the rules, we'll go back to the normal agenda. Motion response B, Hunger Homeless Commission. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you for the motion response. It was just something that was brought to my attention, and I wanted to check and see if that was something even worth discussing, but I think it was pretty clearly defined. It doesn't really make sense, so thank you for the response.
See no other comments. Motion response C, kiosk instructions. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to thank Director Ryan for the report. I'm all set with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Motion response D, bike racks. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I too would like to thank Mr. Ryan for the report. I'm glad to hear that the bike racks aren't going away, and we are looking at ways to add more around the downtown. So I look forward to seeing where that goes. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor Janess. Seeing no other responses. Response E, motion response letter to MSBA. Councilor Janess.
Just thank you to the city manager and his office for putting that together.
If no one has any objections, I'll just make a comment from here. This is a great letter. Thank you for prioritizing the non-fossil fuel operations. So I think that option is great. Yeah, Ms. Moses, thank you again. Motion response F, 48 Kinsman Street in vacant properties. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I guess my only question on this right now, this has been going on, obviously back to 1967 was the original filing on this. The house is in a total state of disrepair right now. Neighbors have complained about people squatting in the house, et cetera. So it is a priority that we move forward with these issues. And my only other question is, how many properties do you think we have like this across the city? Do you have any idea at all?
Mr. Manager. Through you to Attorney McKenna.
John McKenna, Tax Title Director. I don't have the exact number, but there is a group of, properties like this, abandoned trouble properties. Go back to your first comment about, why it takes so long. So the tax title process, it's strict due process. You have to have actual notice to the owners. This property was foreclosed. First taking was issued in 1967. Property like this, it was passed down through a family several times, and you got to Teresa Gormley, I think, was the last listed owner, and she would have been probably two of her sisters lived there. When she passed away, didn't have any children, and then passes along the family lines. You have probates that go across. I think there's about 62 heirs that need to be notified. So the original taking was done. The case was dismissed in '86 for lack of any activity on it. 1992, we repetitioned the case, started working on it. When you bring it back up again, then you have more estates that are in there. So the notice goes through. You're trying to follow through on a foreclosure process. But you have, like 400 cases. This case would take you probably 90% of your time for one property. So we'd, prioritize the cases and go through. But again, they're an issue and you need to get them addressed. So it's, the law department, again, had outside counsel come in to try to get all these death certificates and probates in place, and they did that in 2018, but it was still incomplete. So work like this, it can be done. It's just time consuming, but there's a lot of work there. But anytime that the city has issued a diligent search letter to the court, it's actively received and worked upon by the court and received just because of the, the history that we have and the work we do on these cases. The justices are very acceptable to the work that we do. The number of cases, we can get a number on that. I don't know. We'd have to identify them. But I do recall back in the 90s when there was abandoned trouble properties, we had a whole committee on that. When the properties were being burnt down in Lawrence, we had abandoned trouble properties here in the city, work with the Lowell plan, identify the properties. That's where we got the asset manager came on back then. So identify a property. If we couldn't foreclose on it, would identify it. They would go over, Public Works would go over, would board it up, identify, we'd have other ordinances to make sure if it was foreclosed on, and operated like that. So as far as the number of properties, these tax title accounts, as soon as we get everything up and running again, we have a paralegal from the tax title division now, Stephanie Hunter, who's doing a great job. We're working on getting the tax title auction complete, trying to get that thing done. And as soon as we get that, we can work on some of these older cases. As far as the number of properties, I'm not sure, and it depends how you identify them as abandoned and troubled. Back in the 90s, we had a lot of demolitions that went through to take care of this, and that's another area as well. You can also have a receivership. You can go in and occupy the property if they're not paying their taxes. So there's several different avenues that you can go through. It's a process that's not new to us, but we can work, and there's several tools to address it.
And we've added staff right now with plans that we're going to start addressing. I understand how it could just keep getting pushed down in the priority when there's so many other issues at play. But at some point, after so many years, it's not fair to the neighborhood to have the house sit there like that. So I hope it is, our plans to move forward with doing some of this work. Thank you.
It's not even just as simple as just pushing it down. It's just you can't find these people. Like, you have heirs that go out. There could be somebody that died out in California or out in other parts of the country, and then they die, and then their kids die, and they transfer over. It's not as simple as it may seem. So it's not a matter of just pushing it down. It's a difficult process. Some of these cases are extremely difficult.
Manager Golden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through to the council. Councilor, Attorney McKenna actually was brought on last year specifically for this in regards to tax title and specialties within the real estate world. We also have now since hired an asset manager, which I know that you folks met, and the assistant that you have working hopefully will be able to really put this back into play, because there was a number of years that tax title we weren't really doing a heck of a lot during the COVID timeframe of looking at this. So Attorney McKenna has his work obviously cut out for him to get this accomplished. So we are in the process, and it's been probably 7 or 8 months that I'm not going to say we're fully staffed, but we're better staffed than we have been in the past.
Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Through you to the city manager, or maybe even Attorney McKenna. We've talked about the tax title process and the auction a few times. Are we still on track with that, or have we gotten knocked off the rails with the cyber situation? I'm just wondering if we have a date for that yet. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been delayed because of the cyber situation. I mean, the database, we had the list ready to go and ready to be published, but everything came to a halt obviously. So as soon as we're up and running and get things done, we, found the list and trying to proceed it. But again, you have revenues that need to be addressed. We don't want to be advertising somebody that, is willing to make a payment. So as soon as everything's ready, we're ready to go. Be advertised, and 14 days after the advertisement, the auction will be had.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just have a quick question for you, sir. In a situation like this home, if it become a hazard or a nuisance for the neighborhood, can we still knock it down? And like the previous, a few years back, that's what the city have done, demolish the property that deemed unsafe, eyesore, and then...
Yes, the city can, through the council, have an order of demolition. If it's a nuisance, it's a safety hazard, there's a process to go that, inspectional service goes out, does a report. There's an order that goes out, an order of demolition we made, and then, those funds for the demolition would be added on to that lien, and that's how some of these properties, you see a vacant land that has, costs that are up over, $40,000 for the demolition, or $30,000 for the demolition, and the interest over the years. So that's why you have these vacant lands that cost so much to buy. People don't want to buy it at that cost, and that's why you have the yard sale program used to come in to try to get back on service. So the answer is yes, you can. One of the tools you have is you can order a demolition if it's a safety issue for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to motion response G. Cure for muddy...
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry if I could interject and take something out of order by suspending the rules. There's a young lady here. She's being appointed to a board, and she'd like to say a few words. Just so, she's been here all night long. I'm sorry. It's 4.3.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. 4.3.
While you add it, if you could bundle 4.3 to 4.5, and then, as Councilor Mercia said, the speakers on 4.3 can speak, but the rest we can vote on it?
Yes.
Or just okay it?
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Communication, 4.3, communication. Appoint new members to various boards and commissions. Bethany Welch, Lowell Cultural Council. Peter Crew, Monument Committee. Leo Sheridan, Memorial Auditorium Board of Trustees. Dennis Mercia, License Commission. Christine O'Connor, Library Board of Trustees. Marta Crooker Capone, Hunger and Homeless Commission. Nicholas Giamano, Hunger and Homeless Commission. Diana Santana, Hunger and Homeless Commission. Motion to adopt and place on file. Motion to adopt. Roll call.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Motion by Councilor Janess, seconded by Councilor Leahy.
I have a question on Peter Crew. Peter Crew, and in parentheses, it says Monument Committee, but when you read the information, it seems like he's thinking he's going to be on the LMA, the Lowell Memorial Auditorium Board. So I'm wondering, what is he going to be on? The Monument Committee or the LMA?
The Monument Committee.
Because when you read whatever he has...
The managers recommended the Monument Committee?
Oh, I don't care, I just wanted it clarified. I don't care if he's on both, but it's,
The Monument Committee, yeah. Motion by
Okay.
Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Leahy to adopt. Roll call.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Counsel Rook.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow. Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
And we have an appointee here that just got elected.
Good evening. I'd just like to thank you all for appointing me to this committee. I'm a teacher in Lowell. I am also on the Lowell Association for the Blind Board, so it's just another way that I can help the city.
That's wonderful.
Just thank you so much.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Beth Ann Welch.
Thank you.
You gotta read the names.
4.4, communication and reappointment of members from various boards and commission. Motion to adopt. Roll call. Motion to adopt, Council Leahy, seconded by Councilor Janess. Roll call.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow. Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
4.5, communication, resignation of members of various boards and commissions. Motion to accept by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Scott. Roll call. No roll call. And now we'll go back to the regular agenda. It's like a tennis player. I feel like John McEnroe. Motion G, cure for muddy area at the corner of Bridge Street and VFW Highway. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you for the motion. I appreciate it. The motion response, I mean.
See no other comments, we'll move on to motion H, legal opinion on public comment. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you very much to the administration and the law department for this report. I'm glad to hear that we're in compliance with the current interpretation of the laws. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janess. Motion J, DEI officer. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you to Mr. Manager for this report. I'm glad to hear that the DEI officer position is going to be posted as soon as we can post things. Can we post things at the moment?
Through you to the manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to the council. Yes, council, we're actually in the process of posting it this week. It's a couple technical difficulties, but we will be pushing it out, obviously through city website, as well as our partners down at Mass Hire.
Great, thank you. Are there any substantive changes to the job description, or are we just rolling with what we've already got?
We had made a few changes to include everyone. The only substantive change that I think would be requiring a master's. We took anything from college upwards, and I'm trying to think some other verbiage that I didn't think was that important. I mean, I shouldn't say that important, but something that may have changed.
Could I ask that we get a copy of the new job description?
Yes, we could actually
reference?
send that out. That's easily done. Thank you.
Thank you.
See no other questions. Motion K, walking and biking maps and petition response Wang School students. Councilor Noon.
Report.
Thank you,
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Councilor Janess.
Just a quick comment on this. Thanks for the report. I think it's a good report. The only question is, would it be possible with some of these online resources that we're talking about with maps for the bike network to include various bike parking facilities around the city so people know where they can lock their bikes up, whether it's at a garage or in front of a business? If we could just, any publicly accessible bike racks, if we could try to add those to the maps, I think it might be a good add.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the council. It's a great idea. Once GIS is up, we'll make sure we add the piece.
Councilor Yem.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I thought that was my motion to propose proposed that the map, but it's okay. Councilor Noon can have credit. But here's my here's my comment. I would like to take it a bit further, if I may, from visiting other cities in town. If we could break down in the neighborhood, say for the acre, it just have the walking map with the acre area only, and in that map, in addition to walking and biking, we also promoting local businesses that located along the streets and stuff like that. So each neighborhood, they have their own map with a detail, including park, including businesses, and some of these facilities that are interest of to a visitor who come in, including some of the landmark for the acre. If you go down further on Merrimack Street all the way to the river, it used to have a French Canadian Little Canada. Right now it's all demolished, but UMass Lowell has dedicated a certain section throughout the acre along the river of the Little Canada, and have a history and all the way to the larger park. So if we can break down into a smaller neighborhood, and each neighborhood have this special landmark, and then including some certain interested site for visitor who don't know anything about Lowell, they can pick up the acres map and they walk, and also promoting our local businesses along the way on that map as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yem. Seeing no other questions. Motion response L, noise amplification with attachment. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Also, a good opportunity to segue into, I know the manager is going to, introduce our new superintendent. He's here, and very detailed report, and even the noise ordinance as well. I just want to ask the superintendent, Hudon, that, as spring and summer is approaching, noise is a big complaint in the neighborhood, so I mean, maybe we just really keep an eye on it, maybe, and then, to help so that we don't have to file another motion about the noise in the city. So just step up enforcement on it would be great.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Councilor Mercier.
Yes, thank you. Not everyone was here when our superintendent was sworn in, so I'd like to say congratulations for your appointment.
You might as well come up to the mic now. You've just been introduced by Councilor Mercier. There's nothing better than that. Superintendent Hudon.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council, thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the support, and we'll be as responsive as possible to all your concerns, and I look forward to getting to work.
Thank you. Motion response M, digital equity grant. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to thank the managers and Giovanni Bice-Rose, the Assistant City Manager, for the report. This is a really great thing for the City of Lowell, and to work with our partner, the regional city and town, because there's a lot of stuff in here. This is a federal money. This is something that's good. It's going to help the city in terms of having access. So I want to maybe request that this being sent to the Utility and Technology Subcommittee to have it more discussion around this.
Motion by Councilor Noon to send this to the, which one did you say?
Utility Technology Subcommittee.
And Technology Subcommittee. Seconded by Councilor Robinson. All those in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. 4.2, information reports. Information report, LaLasha Park sale. Manager Golan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through to the council. Councilors, as most of you know, we have been working towards this sale over the past year, and that has finally been completed. We've experienced issues with different I wish Attorney McKenna was here. He worked extremely hard on it, but there was a number of issues with deeds and whatnot. But that has been completed, and I want to make sure that the money is actually in the account. So the money has been received. We do have money that is outstanding at this point, and I believe this is the tune of $80,000. It was our responsibility to fix 2 of the ADA lifts, and at that time, we just still could not get it accomplished. So typically in a real estate transaction, we would, quote unquote, is what's referred to as hold money back until those lifts are operable. So we will be seeing something of that nature in the future. We did not want to slow this down. We have UMass Lowell, obviously baseball is moving forward, and I'm pretty happy that this is that we've accomplished this. I know that the council looked at this. We looked at many other different opportunities, but we're hoping that Alasha Ballpark would be moving in the direction, I believe, that the Songus Arena did as well. I have been in contact with the Chancellor as well as the President with potential opportunities of things to come. And the potential opportunities could be anything from additional baseball as well as the excitement that we have right now along East Campus. That whole East Campus area, which is approximately 10 acres, is something that we'll be working very closely with UML, and I know that we'll be keeping the council up to date as soon as there's more to report. Everything that has been in the newspaper and talked about on social media is all true. They are out working very hard to try to find opportunities over in the East Campus area, as well as the opportunities to have extended baseball, if you would, beyond UMass Lowell. We still have the opportunity to utilize the park in 4 different occasions, but I think with the partnership that we have, the university, I don't think a 5th, if somebody came up with one, would be a difficult chore, provided it doesn't interfere with, obviously, the home team. That being said, we may, although this is a great day, I believe truly this is a great day. This is something that I believe all of us wanted to accomplish. The other challenge that we have before us is the 4th of July. The team is currently working with how to work within the 4th of July parameters. Is the fireworks going to come off from that area? That is something we're working on currently. There are some items that the university may be fixing that time that may make it not possible to have it there, but that does not mean we will not be doing it. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that, but pretty happy about this happening, and I wish I could say a thank you to our team up in the law department, because they really, there were a lot of curveballs. Having been in the business of real estate for 20 plus years, 1 curveball, 2's not too bad, but when you get to the 3, 4, and 5 numbers, it starts to get challenging, and we did accomplish this goal. So thank you all very much.
Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The manager actually answered my question, so I'll just acknowledge the curveball pun with the baseball park. Nice job. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Through you to the city manager, you probably don't remember, but some years ago, I received a call from the Humane Society, and the director there said to me, I need your help with something. When it becomes the 4th of July and the fireworks go off, it makes all the animals go nutty and the dogs go bananas. And it's right on top of us on Middlesex Street in that area there, over by the highest bridge, down a little further, over the river. And it just, we have to spend like a day and a half to just remove all the animals until the 4th of July is over, and then we have to move them back. Having heard that and be a lover of animals, I called then city manager to find out if there was something else we could do to move the fireworks along further down, which the suggestion came to Alasha Ballpark, and that's why it's there. And ever since it was there, they have no problem with the Humane Society because it's out of the earshot of the animals. It was very hurtful for their ears. So being down there, it isn't anymore, and they don't have to remove the animals. So that's the reason we chose that place. So I wouldn't want to move it anywhere further up
Manager
to go
Golden?
through that again. Thank you.
Manager Golden, did you want to say something?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council. Council, we did take that into consideration. We do know that that had been an issue. Once again, there's ideas of moving it for the time being, if need be. And
What I'm suggesting is don't
move
up
it that way. That's correct. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
did talk about moving along the river, and the reminder was brought up that it is an issue. So.
Sure, thank you.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I was employed by the city at the time when they moved them from over by the Humane Society. I believe we did it with pretty good success down under the Aiken Bridge there along the Riverwalk area. I know they were shot off over there, and that way the city kind of facilitated a gathering space at St. Louis Park Top Donut area, and they had food trucks and everything. So, I mean, you have options over in that general area if Plan A is not available. Thank you.
Councilor Yem?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I have two questions, but the manager already answered the first question. Did we get the money? Did we get the check? And the answer is yes, we get the money. And the second is, I just commend you on adding to allow city to use the ballpark for certain event, including 4th of July. And the one question, potential celebratory events, what are those included, that
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through the council. I apologize, council, I didn't hear that. So it could be anything that the city is looking to accomplish. If the council is looking to have, Frank Sinatra, I picked Frank Sinatra, I like it. But no, a concert of any type.
Yes. Yes.
We'd like to have Frank Sinatra, but a concert of any type, if the council is looking to do something, if Case comes up with an idea, once again, we do have a number of opportunities to use the field, but I think we have a very strong partnership with the president of the UMass system, and especially the chancellor. So if there are ideas that do not interfere with what they're trying to accomplish, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a community opportunity similar to the way the Tsongas Arena is.
Thank you. I just want to commend you on that by thinking of adding to allow the city to use the ballpark, even though after we sell it, and then that's great. Councilor Robinson was talking about maybe sometime to allow Little League to play like the final game, final game like playoff, some sort, and play at the ballpark there. So that would be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions on that, we'll move to 4.6, communication, city manager request 1, out-of-state travel, LPD. Motion to adopt, Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Noon. Motion to accept and place on file. Roll call.
Vice Chair Getchia. Council Janess.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem. Mayor Chow. Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
5, orders from the city manager. 5.1, order a 60-day trial. Motion to adopt by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Mercier. Roll call.
Vice Chair Getchia.
Yes.
Council Janess.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow. Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
11 yeas.
6 reports. We don't have any subcommittee. 7 petitions. 7.1 claims. 2 property damage. Motion to refer to the law department by Councilor Scott, seconded by Councilor Rourke.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Mercier.
on one of the claims, and I know I'm not expressing an opinion either way, but I think the petitioner pointed out that on the website or wherever, specifically the website, they do not state anywhere in the information that there's a 30, you must file a report within 30 days. So I'd like to make a motion to include on our website that a claim should be filed with the city within 30 days. Could I do that? Because it doesn't state it, and I think it's a very important part of the procedure that if we're going to be honest and open in this government, we should at least tell them, people that go online to our website, that there is a filing that has to be done within 30 days. It's not there.
Manager Golden said he'll add that to it.
Is that possible? Do I have a second here?
I don't think you need it.
I
He'll
don't
add
need it.
He'll add
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Thank you. 7.3 miscellaneous. Menkill requests permission to address the city council regarding business permitting parking on University Ave. Motion to refer to Transportation Engineering for a report and recommendation by Councilor Janess and seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. 8, city council motions. 8.1, Council Leahy requests city manager have the proper department look into removing the double poles along Moore Street, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Just, those poles have been there for so long, if we could get an update. It's way past the 90 days for each section. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I've seen these motions come through. We had one, I think, that was done over in Centerville, over by the auto zone place, the walkway. Do we have a current running list of double poles that are kind of targeted to be removed throughout the city? Do you know?
Manager Golden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through to the council. Council, we don't keep that list, but we can ask for it. That is typically controlled by Verizon. Now, it's not always Verizon that has the ownership of the pole. I know a little bit about this from my years past, and it is difficult to get that accomplished, but I can reach out, we can get that list and start picking them off. But typically what always ends up happening is they'll replace 300 and then 200 will get hit. And it's just it's a battle that I know that Councilor Leahy, over the years, we've talked about it in different places, but we'll get some concentration on this particular area, and if anybody else has another area, we can continue to concentrate on, whether it be Verizon, occasionally it would be our pole, but we have a lot more flexibility, obviously, on that. And it's because of the number of wires, the number of ownership, the amount of ownership that is on one pole when you look there. It could be Comcast, be Verizon, it could be National Grid, Electric, it could be even our wires from some of our fireboxes. So, and it's crazy how many people and only that person or that organization can touch that wire. And that's where some of the real issues come from, and that's a real problem from the state side.
Okay, thank you.
See no other questions. 8.2, Council Leahy requests city manager have the Parks Department exploring installing pickleball courts throughout the city, seconded by Councilor Janess. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Motion speaks for itself.
Wow, I'm on a roll. 8.3, Council Leahy, Councilor Gitcher requests city manager have proper department explore the feasibility of placing micro dog parks in and around neighborhood district parks. Council Leahy.
Thank you. If we could just explore maybe the possibility of putting smaller dog parks throughout the city in different districts. I don't know what size they should be, what they could be, but just to keep the dogs off the fields, so the organizations aren't cleaning the fields up every time they have a game. And it would solve the problem of having one major park in one section of the city. So this could work. Let's take a look at it and see if it works. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. 8.4, Councilor Gitcher, Councilor Leahy requests the city manager have the superintendent of police update the city council as to what measures are being taken to combat the uptick in gun violence. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Again, just a few phone calls on this, so if we get an update on what we're doing, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. 8.5, Councilor Scott, Councilor Gitcher request out of state our state delegation file legislation that would bring into question the Dover Amendment, Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3, that was originally adopted in 1950. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So I'll give a little bit of history, I guess, first for anyone that doesn't know about what the Dover Amendment is. So Massachusetts enacted it in 1950, and it was this is from the Mass Municipal Association, the information. It was in response to local zoning bylaws that prohibited religious schools within towns' residential neighborhoods. So that was the original intent of the law, and it expanded from that time to include nonprofit educational agencies, agriculture usage. But unfortunately, I feel that there's a loophole that's been used around the Dover Amendment. We've seen multiple projects come into our neighborhoods. I think that it allows some speculators, real estate developers, to look for low-priced parcels in poorer neighborhoods, and not necessarily for the educational use to be the primary usage of the property, but to use it as the loophole that gets this large project, large development, halfway house, transitional housing into a single-family neighborhood. So I just feel like it's done under the guise of that, and I think it's something that really needs to be looked at. It's, really old legislation. I know right now there's a resolution with the Senate. I can't really read it, but asking them to look specifically at that, the effectiveness of the zoning approval process of educational uses under the so-called Dover Amendment. So if our legislators could possibly take a look at revisiting this, I mean, it hasn't, that educational purpose really needs to be better defined, I think, within the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scott. 8.6.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you. I had a little bit of concerns about the Dover Amendment myself. The Dover Amendment exemptions can quickly trigger intense debate that is not always grounded in an understanding or of a respect for legal requirements. And what concerns me, and I'll give you an example, the Dover Amendment may allow developers to build facilities that are substantially larger than zoning laws would ordinarily allow, therefore potentially changing the character of some of our neighborhoods and towns. That's what concerns me with the Dover Amendment, so I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Councilor Mercier, if no one has any objections, I just want to make a comment from up here. I attended a South Lowell neighborhood meeting, and it will definitely change the character. And it's not something the neighbors are very welcoming to because of the premise of it. It's taking up a lot of property. There's no pervious pavement. There's a lot of issues. Dumpsters come into areas, and it just would change the whole character of the neighborhood. So I do think that this is a great motion, and I think it needs to be put forward. And some community has to get a grip on this, because the future is when a builder gets told no, they're coming back with this as the excuse out to build. And they don't have the agreement with the company that's going to take over the property after they build until after they get the agreements from the community to actually do it. So it's a catch-22 piece that happens. And if it folds in 3 years, the funding source, then the neighborhood is really stuck with it. So I agree with you, and I just want to say, Mr. Manager, I hope that we work hard on this issue throughout the state, because it will change the neighborhood characters throughout the state. 8.6, Councilor Janess, Councilor Getchia, request manager have proper department investigate the Department of Labor's Building Pathways to Infrastructure Job Grant Program and provide a report to the council on potential benefits to the city of Lowell. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Through you to the city manager, this was something I just stumbled across on the internet one day and read through it, and it sounds like it might be a great pairing with all our pile of infrastructure jobs or infrastructure work that we need to do within the city. This may be a way to access a lot of funding for employees to do that work. So I think it's worth exploring and seeing if it's something we can take advantage of and really maximize those infrastructure dollars we're trying to put to work right now.
Thank you, Councilor Janess. 8.7, Councilor Janess, Councilor Robertson, request city manager have the proper department explore the feasibility of creating outdoor co-working spaces similar to what Montreal has done in order to increase the vibrance of our business district downtown and in neighborhoods across the city. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Montreal has put together 40 of these around the city, small areas with tables, Wi-Fi, charging, in an effort to get people who are remotely working from home out of their house and, working in other areas in the city, whether that's in a park or in a business district. In this new world we find ourselves in with so many people working from their bedrooms and their living rooms here in the city, this may be an opportunity to really get people out of the house and get them interacting with the city around them. I think it's an interesting idea, and I'd love to see if it's something we can replicate here.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what my colleague said. I think this is a great idea. I've even seen some communities are doing, they'll take like a 10 or 20 yard shipping container, convert that with like workstations with Wi-Fi and charging ports, and they'll just drop it in the middle of like a large park or a neighborhood, and it opens up, and that way it provides like a mobile workstation that you could bring any part of the city. So I think there are some options to really explore this and see if it's something feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. 8.8, Councilor Robinson requests city manager have the proper department provide a detailed report on the impact of the Behavioral Health Unit Police Collaborative in Lowell. Seconded by Councilor Janess. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Press release just came out, I believe it was like May 1st, and it seems like one of the issues with the homeless that we've been dealing with in the outreach, some of our surrounding communities, the suburbs, I think they're redoing what they've been doing. And they came out with a press release, how they're partnering up, and I believe some of the communities were like Barica, Chelmsford, Drake, Tewksbury, Tingsboro, to do a regional approach to like outreach and with the police departments. One of the things that they do is they refer people to, the goal is to eliminate any clogs at the ER or eliminate any clogging at other facilities of that type, as well as the court system. So one of the components they do is they refer to community-based resource centers. I mean, I think it's great. I think if that's the approach, I'm glad to see that they're taking a regional approach, and I think we should look to kind of partner in their efforts, because it's going to take all of us to work together. So I think, I'd like to almost amend this, because I think if they're taking a regional approach, the surrounding suburbs, and they're looking to lessen the burden on the courts and the ERs and prescribe community-based services and resource centers, I think it's a perfect time to go back to what my colleagues have brought up in the past, and let's see if we can reach out to the state and see if Tewksbury Hospital would be an opportunity, because they already have a part in this. They're part of this regional approach that's providing resources, community-based resources, and we're bursting at the seams. We don't really have those kind of facilities. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for us. So if be okay for me to amend the motion, that we could pen a letter maybe with the support of maybe the state delegation, the administration, and my colleagues, requesting the state takes a hard look based on the model that's been kind of established based on this press release. So that's where this motion really came from. I think it's time the Merrimack Valley has to work together and take a regional approach on this, because obviously we could all use the help. Thank you.
No objection to the amendment? Okay. 8.9, Councilor Robinson requests city manager provide a detailed report updating any potential plans to implement a pedestrian-only food, drink, small business area pilot in calendar year 2023. Seconded by Councilor Janess.
So this one, I believe a couple of my colleagues had put this forward early on in the year, and I was just wondering, I know we've been busy, but have we even had an opportunity to take a look at it? I think it was identified when they brought the original motion forward, some of the potential locations, and maybe we look to, if it's doable, maybe July, August, September, October. Just, even if it's a pilot, pedestrian only, because you're seeing it. Montreal's expanding on it. Boston's expanding on it. I mean, people want to be out and about in the nice weather. We saw that with, not even in the nice weather, with the baseball parade. So if we can, anytime we can create an opportunity to put a few hundred to 1,000 plus people in our downtown business district, I think we need to really start working towards that. Thank you.
8.10, Councilor Janess, Councilor Rourke, request city manager have the proper department report on collaboration strategies such as joint patrols that could be employed to maintain quality of life in neighborhoods surrounding the university. Councilor Rourke. No, Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is something that came up last Monday at the PCC meeting. Some of the neighbors around North Campus were sharing with us that they were really suffering from lots of college kids having end-of-the-year parties, and were feeling frustrated that they weren't able to get any action on it from LPD or campus police. And somebody mentioned that pre-pandemic joint patrols between LPD and campus police were something that was regularly done, and the neighbors felt like it had a positive impact on quality of life in the neighborhood. So they were asking if we could look at restarting that, and also if there's any other ways that the two departments could work together to really maintain quality of life for folks who live around the university with all the students. Thank you.
Sounds good.
8.11, Councilor Robinson requests city manager provide an update on the feasibility of the 4th of July baseball/fireworks program at LaLashia, seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Like work with the leagues again, if that location is available. So you kind of hinted at it earlier that you're still waiting to hear. It's up in the air, but any feedback is greatly expected. Thank you.
8.13, Councilor Noon. City ought to provide an update regarding bi-weekly payrolls, seconded by Councilor Yem. Councilor Noon.
The motion speak for itself.
Thank you. 8.14, Councilor Noon requests city ought to provide city council with a report concerning the feasibilities of auditing overtime expenditures throughout the city, seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think if the auditor can provide, say, a look back, 3-year look back would be good in terms of, that should be a standard analysis for all the department over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. 8.15, Councilor Noon requests city councils celebrate the role of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders have played in shaping Lowell's history and the work our communities continue to do today to address inequalities to make Lowell a better place for all. Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The month of May is the AAPI Heritage Month, so just opportunity to recognize it and to honor those who play a role in making our city a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. 8.16, Councilor Noon requests city manager work with the superintendent of schools and police superintendent to ensure plans are in place to deal with swatting calls, which are phone calls made regarding fake school shootings. Seconded by Councilor Scott. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So I think the report, the plan already being already in place. Maybe the public session may not be appropriate place to share those plans, maybe to share that at the executive session, if you have one. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. 8.17, Councilor Mercier requests city manager accept and arrange an invitation from the Lowell Co-op team to all city council members to participate in a Narcan training session together at their best available time. Seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The co-op team asked if we would be interested to be trained in the to show how Narcan is used and a lot of safety features that they would, not just about Narcan, the application and all that, but different other things as far as safety and the homeless. They're very kind to have done that. They asked if I would like to ask and invite the council through the city manager. And I wouldn't pick a time or a place or whatever. That would be up to the manager, and probably the mayor's office or the city clerk could poll the council to see when they're mostly all available. Am I adding too much, dear Michael? I don't know, maybe the mayor's office or Erastus or someone.
Okay.
If they'd like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. 8.18, Councilor Mercer requests city manager to have the proper department place Hadley Street on the repaving list, seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Mercer.
Motion speaks for itself.
Thank you. 8.19, Councilor Yem requests the city manager to have the proper department update the council on the Hometown Heroes banners as to when they will be ready and where to hang them, along with the city's plan to celebrate Memorial Day 2023. Councilor Scott, seconded by Councilor Yem.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm looking forward to the report, but at the meantime, I was given information by the veteran, Mr. Lamarche, that he will have the banner presented to families next Tuesday, Council May 16, before the council meeting at 5:30 at the mayor's reception room. So I'd like to put this out and invite all the viewer and veterans family to join us Tuesday, May 16 at 5:30. And then at the council meeting, I assume that these banner will be presented to the family at the full council meeting. But the reception is at 5:30 at the mayor's conference room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yem. 8.20, Councilor Yem requests the city manager update the city council on the MVP grant project for an urban forest master plan and a master plan for urban heat island assessment, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Yem.
Motion speaks for itself.
Yeah, we're going to make it. 8.21, Councilor Yem requests the city manager and the mayor draft a letter urging Massachusetts Senators and Congresswoman Laurie Trahan to support H.R. 8197, Veterans Equal Access Act, on behalf of the entire city council.
Motion speaks for itself.
I got to get a second. You got to hold on a minute. Councilor Scott, second, and Councilor Yem. Motion speaks for itself.
Motion speaks.
Does anybody have any announcements? Councilor Yem.
I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the entire council and the city office to congratulate Councilor Noon on his birthday today, exactly today. Want to wish him a wonderful, happy birthday. And then his better half, Navi, also birthday is the day after on the 10th. So the whole family have a birthday May 9 and May 10. Have a wonderful, happy birthday.
One more thing, before we go. This week is Nurses Week, and we'd like to thank all the nurses in our city and in our country for everything they do. Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Noon.